Good evening, all. It's stream time again. I wasn't expecting to stream this week, and I had a sudden influx of subscribers over the last few days, which took me over the 550 mark. So thank you everyone for subscribing. I thought this would be next week with the rate it was growing. I was gaining subscribers at the rate of 2, 3, or 4 a day. Then suddenly, Monday, Tuesday this week, people appeared from all corners. And hopefully some new people here tonight. But I'm just going to say hello to Saxius, who you should be able to see. You've heard his voice before. And Dark Knight of Hibernia is here once again. So if you guys, Saxius, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And DK.
Hello.
And hello to everybody who is in chat. I know Adam's been waiting, and we have Elfbait, Halakar, who are regulars, and it does look like we've got 13 people watching. 13 people listening to us talk nonsense and argue about one of the hottest topics in the D&D world, pretty much since D&D first appeared, and that is alignment. Right, gonna start with my personal opinions, then we'll just in general, and then I will ask Saxius and DK what their preferred way of dealing with alignment is, and then we'll come into some of the other topics. Hello to Saya Sip. I don't think I've seen you before. Might be Kip. Saya Kip. Sailor. Oh, is that an L or an I?
That's an L, I think.
Yeah, my eyes are terrible. That's right. So my opinion is alignment is a key part of any D&D game. And when I was younger, in my teens, I picked up a game which didn't feature alignment, so I felt a little bit lost because I started with D&D, and I liked the idea of having these defined sides of good and evil, law and chaos. I think there's a difference between society alignment and personal alignment. And as a DM, I like using alignment to help craft societies. And as a player, I like to use alignment to help develop the personality of a character, because I think it's a good guide. It's a good guiding tool, both for DMs and players. Obviously, definitions of all the various alignments and the amounts of alignments have changed over the course of D&D, from the 3 alignments of basic, lawful, neutral, chaotic, the 9 alignments that we're more familiar with nowadays, adding good, neutral, and evil across the board. And each version of D&D seems to have had its own little variants on how alignments are defined. Well, that's my just basic roundup. Saxius, do you use alignments in your games, and if so, what do you think about it? Just to give me a general heads up to start with.
The general heads up is that yes, I do use alignments. I do my best to enforce alignments. I do believe that when a character sits down, when a player sits down and make their character, that an alignment should be playing as a part of forming that character, both in terms of their personalities, their outlook of life, as well as their general motivations when they make this character, because these should be forming an outlier and a sort of guiding form that they can then go on for their journey. Now, I'm more flexible for characters and their alignments changing according to their actions and their belief changing to represent the arc and the change of characters. But I often sit down with players and I try to discuss the alignment that they pick. Because to me, a key thing is that communication and understanding of the alignment has to be aligned before anything can really be done. Before you roll the dice, that has to be aligned with me.
That's an alignment of alignment.
Exactly. It has. We've got to align both things. But that is a quick summary of me and alignments. Big fan, love it, and I try to use them to many extents.
Okay. Before I just go over to DK, I will say if you're in chat and you feel like having a verbal chat with us, and you have access to the Discord channel, There is a link in there, so just let me know, and you can come in and have your say in person. We can hear you, but that's completely up to you, completely optional. DK, what do you think of alignments?
I think that alignment is the single most important mechanic a DM has in D&D. I think that not implementing alignment does the game a gross disservice. It is very important to the world building, and I'm going to say, unlike most people, so unlike no, not to be mean, but like you and Saxius, I don't say your character behaves this way, ergo that it becomes. I am of the opinion that that when you choose an alignment, that is the cosmological force imbuing itself into you, and that informs your personality. It's not you behave this way and law comes to you. No, law came to you and you behave this way. It's kind of more the Moorcock's take on, from what I've heard of the alignment, where the alignment, the force chooses a champion and you embody that alignment. I don't believe it should be a philosophical thing. It should be a cosmological force.
It's partly how basic D&D was, in the sense where you had the forces of law and chaos with neutrality somewhere in between. I mean, I can get on board with that, because I do think that simplicity can make for an engaging game. And you can have allies with opposing ideals, but on the same side, on the side of law. I remember it messing with my head when I first read. I was 12 years old, and I got a copy of X4, Master of the Desert Nomads. And there were some dervishes in there, which could potentially, if they were religious zealots, and if the party said something to offend them, then they would capture the party and potentially put them to death. And I was 12 years old, and I saw alignment lawful. And I was thinking, but they could be bad guys. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I thought, oh no, hang on. There can be groups within the same sort of side that just don't get on.
I personally, to further extrapolate on my point, I don't think that I actually despise the good, neutral, and evil alignments. I hate them. I actively hate them. I think they not only do they not add anything to the alignment system, I think they actually detract. But we will save that for later on when we start extrapolating, because I don't want to hog. This is just an opener to define our terms.
So first things first, alignment as a world-building tool is the first note I've got here. As an almost always DM, though I might not be in the near future, because one of my players is planning on running a game, and it's going to be his first game, and he's all nervous about it, and we shall see how he gets on. Good luck, Mike. I will not be rating and judging you the whole time. Honest, if you watch this,
he's judging you. He is judging you the whole time. Don't listen to him. He's lying.
So, for me, alignment as a world-building tool is an absolute godsend, because I can I like the 9-pronged alignment, and I can look and think, I have this town here. What should I make it? And sometimes having that entirely blank canvas, there's that quote I mentioned from Orson Welles in one of my videos about lack of restrictions restrictions breeding creativity. And I think, right, okay, if it's completely blank and if I've got nothing to work on, then I do struggle with ideas. But I think, okay, I want to make a town which is lawful evil. How do I go about that? And having 3 definitions in 3 different books I've got beside there of what lawful evil is. I'll read them all, I'll combine them, and I'll think about examples from history, and I'll use all that as fodder as a DM to think about how the town might be structured. And in the same way, a chaotic good society. I like it. And it helps me. It also helps me create NPCs. Helps me think about what the NPCs, what they might say and react in certain situations. The same way a character would use it. And organizations, how an organization might act if they've got a certain ethos behind them, and as you've said, cosmologically as well, in terms of deities, having deities of each alignment, not necessarily specifically for each prong, but. It all meshes in nicely. And for me, having alignment as that sort of glue, that tool that gives me the ideas, I find it very, very valuable. I might be rambling.
No.
Saxus, I'm getting you like alignment. Did you use it in a similar sort of way?
So when it comes to alignments, and in the world building scape, it depends on what kind of world that I'm going and what kind of game that I'm trying to go for. Current Saturday, I told my players from session 0, we are going to be doing alignment like Goblin Slayer. It is good, evil, and that's the end of the real big discussion there. And in other games, I look at alignment and I say, right, how do I want them to sort of like play into the world? Because I don't go macro usually when it comes to these things. I very much like go all the way down, almost in reverse. And I start from a local area. I build that area, and I don't so much apply the alignment to an entire civilization. I apply them to I wouldn't say demographics, but almost organizations or bodies of individuals who shares a common connection, whether that be beliefs, organizations like merchant guilds, thieves guilds, or a simple thing as a mercenary group, for example. They're all tied under some form of organization, whether that's strict or loose. And from there, I then more or less populate different pockets of alignment, and then they mesh and they help make the world breathe more life into it, simply because I prefer it when there are multiple alignments that I'll play. You can't be running across both good and evil within the same town in my typical campaign, because good and evil are going to be aspects of your life. It's just whether you're going to be going looking for them with your detect evil and your no alignment spells, if you decide to start uprooting that. So that's how I go about it. I try to sort of look at the alignments and what kind of people it would be attracting or combining to make the world and the environment be brought to life.
So, I mean, I said at the start about society versus personal alignment as well.
Yeah.
I think there are differences. I think, for example, a lawful neutral person might behave in a different way to a lawful neutral society would, because of the expectations of the society. I mean, it's equally a chaotic good society. Certainly, a chaotic good person could easily be a rebel within a chaotic good society because of that slightly rebellious nature of chaotic. It's that because you're always the same alignment doesn't mean you always have to get on, always have to fit in. So that personal versus society level is something I like to think about sometimes. I'm sounding like I think about things much more deeply than I actually do.
My take on the my how am I going to word this? How I use alignment, right? Like, I prefer a very mythological approach to, rather than like say a personal or kind of a pulpy take on alignment. I prefer a mythological take. Now, the reason why I like law, neutrality, and chaos more, the three-pronged alignment system, is there's a religious position called Manichaeanism, where there is a good God, what like Plato would call the realm of forms, right? Where there's a perfect area, like there's a perfect version of a chair, a perfect version of morality, a perfect whatever, right? And then there is the chaotic, which is in flux. It's constantly changing. It's arbitrary, right? That's where demons and devils reside. So, like the concept of Manichaeanism is there's one pantheon or one god who is supreme and is the most powerful thing in the universe, but the chaotic, the lesser evil gods, right, are numerous but way less powerful, and the two sides combat each other on like the neutral plane, the realm of mortals for dominion, right? So that's how I use it to inform the world building, that there is this struggle, maybe not of good versus evil, but of law versus chaos. You know, that how the mortals shack up in this is up to them entirely, but they can't say, I behave this way, therefore I can influence how law works. No, law has had an influence on my life, and I align with, that's literally what you're doing. You're aligning with something. You know, it's not like a personal thing. It's like these forces have my principles, so I side with those with this group. It's like whatever like say you join an army, I don't care what the general may personally think. He's defending my country. Whatever I may feel about him personally doesn't matter. He's on my side. So you can have, this is what I was saying, that this good, neutral, and evil thing kind of detracts from it. Because like I can give you an example. Can a lawful good society have slaves? And I don't mean like, oh, they're indentured servants and you're going to release them. No, I mean you own them as property for the rest of their lives. Can a lawful good society do that? I would argue it can't.
I was going to bring this comment up from Jarrett here, and I may be going against the grain here, but I think it depends on whether you look at alignment through modern morality or norms of the time. And I would say a lawful good society could have slaves, but it depends on the context and it depends on how the slaves are treated. And because does that mean that every society before slavery was abolished was evil? I don't believe so. I don't believe so, because for some it was considered to be the norm. It was considered to be a just punishment for going against, for being from a rival state, from a rival civilization. And often I think it's a mistake to frame alignments always by modern morality.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, like, even like the fact that we're going into, well, in our world, I'm not even looking at this from like our morality. I'm looking at this from an there are literal planes of existence that are tied to goodness, that they are objectively good. And these are societies that put, even like in AD&D, they value personal freedom. They will only ever restrict freedom as a necessary sacrifice so long as it doesn't go too far. They'll like say, for this moment, we'll enact martial law because there's chaos running amok, like demons running amok. But as soon as they're gone, we'll revert back. That's what a good.
I would like to go back to actually start answering the questions that we had from Jared.
Okay.
Because I think
we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this.
Yeah,
we'll come back to this. Later.
Because the alignment and culture, and those are very interesting things for both a story point of view, from the events that the players get to engage with, the world. It's something that's very interesting. I think it is something that can be played on. An example I have from my second edition game is that one of the players is from an empire where slavery is not only legal, it is encouraged. It's a major facet of their economy, and he is now in a kingdom where it is the complete opposite. Slavery is abolished. They do not believe that you can be a slave. Slavers should be hung immediately, but we do believe in serfdom. It's like, what? So he's got to deal with some cultural shocks there, because he comes from a very different culture where his lawful society has dictated certain things, and he, as a
Both
character,
are
is
lawful
lawful.
societies, though, aren't they? Both can be classed as lawful societies.
Yes,
Both of them are
that was the
classed as
point.
such.
That was the point I was driving at. If because like goodness is a very loaded term, but lawfulness allows for ambiguity, right? Because you also have to consider the fact, what do individual players consider to be good, right? Because not only is does it also, like, because we can all agree causing suffering is bad, right? We generally agree, even to the worst human beings, it's wrong to cause them pain, right? But to what degree are we going to apply this? Because everyone will have different takes on goodness, but lawfulness is a lot easier to define, and it's also far more rigid, because it's harder to argue, like, oh, if you break the law, is that lawful? People say, no, that's not lawful at all. Like, you follow rules and structures. Like,
I don't agree with that necessarily, but that's because my definition of lawful boils down to a code, an order, a north star to the character that is defined as their morality or their tenets of what makes their honor or their belief system, malleable to them. It's something that they try their absolute hardest and their best to maintain. It can be whatever it is that we then define lawful to be, and then this is then where, leading it back into the question, this is then where we can start having different cultures where the interpretations of the alignments are going to be different, because you can have, I'm trying to think here outside of the European standards. I know in Eastern Europe there are very strong, like communal ties to certain for certain areas, to the point of where conflicts would then arise. When conflicts arose up, there was almost dubbed, blood wars. It was such a long going conflict that was going on because of the communal culture that was going on. You took one from us, we shall take one from you, eye for an eye, that kind of thing. And and to them, they would all be seeing themselves as either good or what have you. But to then twist it around, if we are to look from, let's say, again, I don't want to use history here because history is modeled in gray. We are humans. We are very complex creatures, and alignments is very difficult to pin down on us. But let's say we took
people continually go through lists of film characters and try and pin them into alignment graphs.
You see, like there's actually a YouTuber who pointed this out, where the best way to pin up a particular character to an alignment is to pin them into every single one of the 9 prongs, because humans are incredibly complex. Like demons, you like, if you went with creature types and said a demon is chaotic evil, then because that's how they are. But humans aren't like that at all.
Well, I'm going to come to the complexity of races and things like that a bit later on, which it might be another touch. But what we're saying about alignments and cultures, I mean, I do try to perceive alignments in a sense of the world and the time. I'll say that I almost always, if I'm going to run a D&D game, I try and set it to be around 1350, 1400 AD. That's the time when most of the equipment, most of the armor, certainly from AD&D, fits the majority of it. Obviously, there are some oddities, and I then try and think, well, how would a society function then? What did they believe was lawful? Well, obviously the structure, but what did they believe was good and evil? And can we apply an objectiveness to that sort of sense of? I'm rambling. I'm getting my words confused. Because obviously, I say about humans, all the shades of grey. It is impossible to be totally objective. There's always going to be a little bit of subjectivity that may be my own. But they all saw the church as good. For the vast majority of people. Whether the individuals in the church were good is another matter entirely. But the general people perceived the church to be good. So as an institution, it was good. So whatever the church proclaimed, the people would see as good. I'm getting the idea in terms of the culture and the people. So there, some things we might see as distasteful nowadays might be perceived as being good in that culture.
Yeah, but the problem I have with the cultural thing, your culture is an incredibly human and subjective thing. The reason what I'm trying to do is I prefer alignment when it is objective. Like, no, this is law, this is neutral, this is chaotic.
As you've already said, you do like those three band alignment, because but that allows you to do that and give you that structure that you like. I can see. I can see that.
So one thing that I've done. Go on.
You know, like, but the whole thing of like how am I going to word this? I'll let you speak while I try and formulate this.
Sure. All right. So thinking more directly of, alignment, cultures, how it directly impacts someone's achievement for both NPCs and players. One thing that I inserted into one of my campaigns was an area where I was heavily inspired by the Dacians, the Thracians, and those groups and demographics from the Balkan area, north of Greece, that kind of area. And I gave them a very chaotic, they rejected society as the players. When the players came into their region, this heavily forested area, this area where humans were in effect rubbing shoulders with monsters, this was something that they've never really seen. Humans and monsters do not get along. We fight each other till the bitter end. This was a cultural thing that the players had come in, and they were very much embracing that because of the stance we had set up in terms of alignment. Now here they were in an area where humans were directly living in monster territory. They were living in an area where they were, almost in a pseudo truce with ogres and hobgoblins and gnolls and so on. Yeah, there would be skirmishes and what have you, but these existed. But that was because this group of people had decided that we reject the the standards set up by the kingdom. We don't believe that we should be paying taxes. We believe that a man should, and a woman, and everyone should be working to survive. You are your own person. You are going to have to fight to be that person. And that is a cultural thing that they had set up. And I used their alignments of chaotic and basically neutral. I tried to stay away from true neutral. I went more with a chaotic neutral stance where it's very, I wouldn't say whimsical, but it was very much like, I want to achieve this. Usually I want to achieve a standing of strength within this environment. Therefore, I'm now going to go out and do that. And they would basically achieve that.
And they do it by themselves rather than relying on a society to
exactly. So the whole setup was, if you were in this town that they had made, every backyard was not a yard like we would know in modern day. No, that was a farming area for that family because you are self-providing at all times. They had watch posts, they had all of these things, but that was because that they were almost as a community had said, well, we need this. And someone went, well, I'll do it because I will do this for them. It was by desire as a commune almost. Not that they were really being led, it was just the chaotic nature of there was no unity amongst them. It was all just, we have to survive, but to survive, we have to be individually strong. And in order to be strong, we need to, from a very early age, learn how to fight. We need to learn how to farm. We need to learn how to hunt. And we need to learn how to identify enemies from potential friends.
So they still had a structure within their life. So a lot of people think, chaotic, total lack of structure, but they've got a personal and a family at a family level, or maybe even just a friends and neighbors sort of level in terms of structure. But in terms of that society, the structure of the society itself doesn't support the
exactly. And when players come in and you tell them, it's like, I want to pay with this, and they will throw out money, and they'll look at them and go, what's this? Your money means nothing to me. I want pelts, I want ale, I want these things. And suddenly the players who came from I wouldn't even say lawful society, it was more of a neutral good society. It was upside down. Commerce was not the same thing. Communication was very different. Suddenly, they came from a background where the most prominent god that was really around was the god of agriculture and the god of family and so on. When they were mentioning this belief, like, it was like, yeah, we kind of understand what you mean here, but look around you. Like, we don't, like, gods are there, yeah, but the gods that we truly believe in is the water that comes from the heaven and feeds our plants, and the the animals that warn us of when the waters can't be drunk. It was more of a nature orientated belief, more spiritual with nature, closer to what druids would be expected to be. And this is where I think that the alignment and culture really merged in to show that. And for players who came from a very structured, again, paying taxes to the Baron, having to contribute, having to go to school, which was an ongoing joke for all of the wizards. How many hundreds of thousands of gold are you in debt? Because I have American players, so we had to make fun of the American system for that. But that was a joke. That was an ongoing joke that we just had. But here, in this land, if they actually met a wizard, he would be considered a hedge wizard, and he would be considered to be illegal in their eyes. But within that society, no, that's Charles, Charles the Wise Man. You don't touch Charles the Wise Man, because Charles the Wise Man knows things, and he can do things with his magic, by his thing.
So I don't know. I don't.
We'll quickly flick through some of the comments. I think we've already touched on that, where people can disagree, and I think more towards the lawful level, people are more likely to agree, but more towards the chaotic level, more people are more likely to conflict, because freedom and independence, it's less structured. So two people who are chaotic good could easily conflict over things. Here we go. I'm inclined towards lawful and chaotic alignment mechanics. I think those polar corners, I think, are the ones that are the easiest to
define,
work with, to define, to visualize, to work with. It's when you get into the gray areas where the neutral is involved as to what level, exactly how much impact that neutrality has. But it's something I'm going to come to, the issues with neutrality a bit later on.
Yeah, like one of the things I hate is like I think, because it's also like, because this is one of the big problems I have with it, is that like people don't like. Here, I'll define what I think lawful, neutrality, and chaos is. Law is order, structure, hierarchy, and stasis. That's the key word. It is static. Chaotic is free. It is random and arbitrary. Arbitrary is the most important word of chaotic. That's why I think law tends towards good and chaos tends towards evil. Does that mean they're always good or evil? No. Like I will say, like, democracies and republics are lawful because they believe. Yeah, take your time. They believe in the rule of law. Like democracies and republics believe in the rule of law, right? Because they have a code of conduct that they hold above themselves. No matter how they feel about something, this is what our society or our gods or whatever believe. No matter how we as a people believe about it, this is good. A dictator, on the other hand, is my way or the highway. That is an extremely arbitrary position, because their rule is the highest rule of authority, and they can contradict themselves. Like, just look at how dictators behave. They contradict themselves within minutes of themselves, whereas we have a standard that we always try to abide by.
I mean, I tend to see a dictatorial state as being most likely to be towards lawful neutral, lawful evil person. But again, we have our own visions of how these societies would look. Because I think a lot of dictatorial states can be very rigid, can be very static.
That is.
I mean, Cuba, for example, where Castro was a dictator for a long, long time, but it was very structured.
Yeah, but the thing is that the thing that it is, like, what makes it like the noun of the sense is that it's arbitrary, whereas the static part of like, to describe him as a verbiage, he is arbitrary, but he's static. The point I'm driving at is the most defining aspect of him is that it's his rule. It's my way or the highway, right? He may not change, but the thing that stays constant is the fact that his rule is arbitrary. It's not like we have these are our rules. This is how we follow them. We may bend them a bit to be more lenient or harsh to people, but at the end of the day, we will operate within this framework that exists above ourselves, and no matter who comes in, they have to follow it.
So I think laws can be very arbitrary at times.
Yeah, they can be, but we have a general framework that stays constant. Like, you and I will, like, if we live in the same country, we'd say murder is always illegal. Always. That never changes. But in a dictatorship, they'll say, well, it's not murder when I do it. That's what I'm talking about. That's where the arbitrary nature comes in.
I think it depends on the individual.
I would argue, though, I mean, I'm just going to use Adam Pender's statement there. As he says, one example I used to teach others is that the in a three-pronged system, the Third Reich would be evil, but in AD&D, it was lawful evil. But, as he states, he could be wrong. If we're going to be bringing history into this, which I think for this one is good, the three-pronged good, neutral, evil. Yes, it would be falling into the evil category because it was very, what it was doing was, it was definitely doing harm to a lot of people, and that is an extraordinary understatement of how evil, how terrible it actually was. It is one thing that's being held up over and over and over as an example of like this. The Third Reich.
I cut you out there for me. Yeah. But no,
yeah. So it's being held up all this time. Really bad thing, and through AD&D, definitely would be under lawful evil because it was a systematic thing. It was a setup, not just in terms of laws, but in terms of how the societies was then brought out to believe. Today, even at this current year, a psychologist still uses, Germany during this time frame to study and give understanding for how people could come to accept what they were doing, how handing over a family of Jewish descendants would be considered a good thing, because if that family was owning a store, that store would be handed over to you. It would be seen as a form of reward for you handing over quote unquote enemies of the state. Now, again, these laws were set up in place to reinforce this form of psychology, and the propaganda that was then seen pumping out pushed it even further. So that's, again, depending on how you're using the three-prong system, or if you're using the, 9-prong alignment, this is how you change the definitions, or how the real-world events can be used to reinforce something.
But the things like that, the reason why I say that someone like the mustachioed man who did very, very bad things, and I hate him, YouTube here, I denounce the bad man. I know, but he, to me, I actually didn't want to bring him up at all. That's why I said dictatorship and not him. But if we're going to say him, the reason is that I would say he's chaotic and not lawful is because there was no real precedent for what he was doing before. It was all based on ideas that, yeah, sure, influenced him, but they were very, very avant-garde and revolutionary and like subversive ideas. They wanted to use democracy to destroy democracy. That's a quote that he had. So if he's using a thing to destroy the thing, that's not following a thing higher than himself. He's using its own laws to eat away at itself to bring in a new thing.
Lawful evil.
It's not lawful evil. I think in terms of, obviously something Sachs just mentioned earlier, the difficulties of attributing alignments to people in history, and I think it is in terms of the three pronged axis, the lawful, neutral, chaotic. It's impossible. That is there in place for fantasy games with objective forces that groups are following, and you fight for law, you fight for chaos. It's sometimes possible to define people in history using the nine option one, and I personally think the example we're talking about here is one of the most perfect examples of lawful evil, structured, organized malice.
I do think there's also something else that might be worth sort of bringing out, because I think you definitely pointed at it there, John. Because with three-prong alignment, again, we've got good, evil, and a neutral in the middle. There's not really a lot of wiggle room between these two. They're very condensely and very precisely defined, and I would argue that this is now the point where we should always be discussing what kind of game are we really going to be going for, because alignments at this stage will be having a big impact for that. Because if we're going three-prong, okay, we're doing kind of high fantasy, good versus evil. We're doing the soap opera approach of Lord of the Rings, where we are here, we are good, it is defined, so therefore what we do is justified. If you want to get more into the grays, into the weeds and so on, nine-prong, absolutely, there's more things out there. And if you want to go even further beyond that, and this is going to be ruffling some feathers, but this 5th edition throws out alignment in its entirety almost. It simplifies it so much further down, and it allows for a much more, how would you put it, broader sense of what the alignments can be, because they've even, I've got the alignments in front of me here. There are 2 lines per alignment at this stage.
2 sentences, basically. That's it.
Yeah. No,
but my problem, my problem with those descriptions is that they are so broad they don't define anything. The whole point of
that was the intention. They've been trying to push out to the
like what? How does a golden dragon, a paladin, or a dwarf behave? Because it doesn't explain how these people behave. Whereas like in older editions, it was like 1 second. Let me get for Golden for Glory. You guys talk while I find the page.
I will read it out for you. Lawful good creatures can be counted on to do the right thing as expected by society. That is all you need to know about lawful goods. You could be counted on to do the right thing as is expected by society. So you are.
I would say that's lawful neutral. I would say that's lawful neutral.
No, we have all of our own.
If it's saying as defined by society, well,
one thing I didn't want to get particularly into was our own definitions of lawful. So I'm going to move to the comments. I agree with Halakar here. I would say that that's Cavaliers and Paladins versus Cavaliers and Paladins, and the vast majority would all believe they were on the sides of good and law, and the others were bad. Of course, we do know that it's always the French that really were the bad guys.
Yes, absolutely. Based.
Like 5 Celtic clerics of different deities in a cabin surrounded by barbarians, and I think I mentioned this earlier. Chaotic good is particularly an alignment of trying to do the right thing, but in a sense of being an individual in doing so. So all 5 could they wouldn't have a set criteria, a set set method. They wouldn't have set norms that they particularly follow. They would just all try and do the right thing, and all 5 could do different things. Is alignment a reflection or an aspiration?
That is a very good question.
I think it's both.
I think it's neither.
I think. Oh, that is a good friend. Because I would push for alignment to be used as a form of aspiration of a character. However, as we know, once the player gets into the character, you go through 2 or 3 sessions to sort of feel out, like probably create the character, and at that point, that your actions, the character, the person you've actually fully built with the personality and outlook and goals, now that's going to start becoming a reflection of what you are.
Yeah, so it develops.
Yeah, it develops. I try to begin with saying, here's the box, try to fill this in, or follow these things. But then as you play out, you then realize, actually, my ranger is not neutral good. My God, he's a lunatic. He's chaotic neutral.
Yeah, I completely agree with Adam here. Like, because if we're going to say this is a cultural thing as well, how that can orcs be good? And I would argue, in a typical D&D setting, they can't. So this is kind of the crux of what I was trying to say. We're getting into the deontological argument of alignment. Alignment as objective good. It's good, or it's lawful because it's lawful. I would argue that.
Something I'm going to pick up about this comment here, though. If you read the module Vault of the Drow, one of the definitions of chaotic evil in AD&D was rule by power. And if you read the module Vault of the Drow, which is the proper Drow, they were very much ruled by power. There wasn't a law. There was no respect in their society. It was constant backstabbing. No, I think I would say chaotic evil. All they respected was power.
No, I would say chaotic evil. If we are going to use the 9-prong, I view chaotic evil as entropic, as how the demons behave, as we want to destroy everything.
There's still a power structure in the demons, so they still respect power, and demons will still.
Sure.
Yeah,
but that's more of a physical with like power in the sense of like raw physical strength.
It's like gnolls, for example. Gnolls can live in tribes, ruled by the most powerful.
Yeah, it's fair.
Anyway, let's keep flicking through. Very few societies consider themselves good or evil. Very true, very true. And this is where having, at least in game terms, objective definitions, even if it's very subjective in actual specifics in the play, but having these objective definitions to cover the whole of the game, I think that's. Oh, I've completely lost my train of thought there, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Having sort of trying to set up the game with objective definitions, even though there's going to be subjective things happening within the game. Scarlet Brotherhood. Where's that one? Scarlet Brotherhood, lawful evil or chaotic evil? The thing is, here he's gone on talking about Harpers, and that's Forgotten Realms, and I like to treat Forgotten Realms as if it never existed.
The thing is, I don't know that much about the Forgotten Realms, so when I'm approached and asked Scarlet Brotherhoods or Harpers, I actually don't know because I've been running homebrews.
Right. Yeah, I run homebrews because I don't.
90% of my campaigns, there are some worlds that I find interesting. Forgotten Realms is getting my interest, but I have not deep dived that much into it, so I can't answer. I really just can't. I do want to, but I can't.
I started looking into it, and I have got the odd book up there, but the more I found out about it, the more it just became too fantastical, too nonsensical for my
It's a
living.
different taste. It's a different taste. It's very high fantasy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And cool. I mean, that's again. This is down to preference, and we're deviating away from alignments. But I would love to answer Adam. I've got no idea. That's the problem.
But I think if we look to the next comment, Halakar's already answered it, and that's it. That seems a fair and logical answer.
I'll take it.
Okay. Let's see here. Halakar. It's lawful people and chaotically more self-serving. See, this is kind of why I don't like when people say X society is lawful. I don't like doing that because it's not helpful. It's not helpful because societies aren't thinking entities. They're made up of thinking entities. Individuals can be of an alignment, and deities, and there's it's like a background force, because like even if we take the premise that you guys prefer the 9-prong, can we at least agree that the fact that these alignments exist and they prescribe that certain classes must be this way and certain planes be this way, that makes them more objective, correct? Can we at least concede to that?
No, like
paladins must be lawful and good.
Yeah,
can we agree to that?
Yes, but now I do want to point out that when you say they have to be lawful, that to me the definition of lawful will be changing depending on what order the paladin is a part of.
I don't even agree. There should be more than one. There should be more than one order of paladins.
I mean, we have ascertained that DK he likes having those specific cosmological forces.
I'm with you on that.
It's a different way of looking at the game, and I can see the merit in it. I can see having those sort of simplified the forces you fight for can make for a very different experience. And sometimes I yearn for that simplicity.
Well, I don't even think it's simplistic. It's just different because it's akin to saying that like that there is no complexity in how, like, what would a person who is lawful, what does that mean for them as a because you can still as a person be flawed and imperfect even though you're lawful, but law as itself, like what he said with the church itself was an institution and was flawless and perfect, but the people inside of it could be flawed and damaged and make mistakes and sin. But the concept of law itself, or chaos or neutrality, those things can't be argued, but how a person behaves tends towards an alignment. Would that be a better way to say it, that they tend towards an alignment? Would that be a better way to frame this?
I like having a difference between a society alignment and an individual alignment. I think they can be defined differently.
But I also come from the point of view that I don't go with a monolithic deity in my games or in my experience. I think that once you start bringing in, let's take Lion and Dragon, because that's, if I'm right, that's where you're getting most of your inspiration from.
Well, yeah, I'll concede to that, yes.
Just going to say, Adam, I would say it was Chaotic Evil by April 1945. No, not Chaotic Neutral.
I would have said it was chaotic by the time it came into power, but that's just me.
That stage it was all out chaos. I agree to that. Anyway, back to the main thing. Lion and Dragon, it's got a very specific world that it's going by. It's trying to mirror human history, and it's trying to mirror certain aspects of the historical events and the setup in the societal contract that you were facing at that time, which was leading to more binary views of certain things, at least in terms of what is good.
Because it was a pre-Enlightenment society.
Yes. Now I'm coming from the point of view that I come more from a pantheonic, order. of gods,
Right.
where they've got
Okay.
different orders, you've got different views, you've got different interpretations. The god of agriculture, fertility, and family is going to have a very different interpretations of what lawful is than
Okay.
the Christian or the Holy Son from the Lion of Dragon, because you've got very distinct, different what's called motivations and definitions of what the lawful part is. So that's why I don't think we can sit down and say, right, do we all agree on this? No, we will never agree on that, because it just will not. We're coming from very different worlds and interpretations and applications of those systems.
I all agree the discussion will be tedious, so don't worry.
Yeah, I agree. Now that you've clarified, I think I understand where you're coming from, but I can still argue that because like even in the church, right, there was different sects, like there were reformations and all that, but I would still argue they were still lawful. So you can still have, in a pantheistic sense, like multiple gods can all be lawful and still vehemently disagree with each other, and that's where the conflicts can come in, where you can have like these religious disagreements, so. But that's just me, and I find that interesting. The fact that all of these things are lawfully aligned, and yet they can still disagree, and that's where like chaos can start seeping in to subvert inside out and corrupt and pervert them and turn them to the dark side. So that's where you can get this sort of cultural or societal arguments that I think is very interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to say to this comment here. Played in games where evil is defined as selfishness. For me, yes, that is that I would say what evil is. Evil, you see, and I think that's why I consider neutral evil to be the most evil of all alignments. And I think neutral evil is pure selfishness.
Okay, so I would say people can construe selfishness with self-interest, and I don't necessarily agree, but I get what you mean. But I would not. I go for it. Yeah, you go for it.
I think evil can be much more broader than just being selfish. I think selfishness is a
spectrum.
To the point of doing extreme harm, I think is what they mean. Selfishness to the point of damaging other people to an extreme degree, like stealing from a beggar for your own amusement, kind of thing.
Not even that. Some people just want to watch the world burn, to quote Batman. And sometimes you're just the evilness of, for example, burning down your grain supplies before winter. Oh, good God, that is a horrific thing to do, especially if we're looking at a medieval society where winters you're going to have limited food income. And depending on where you are, that's going to have a massive impact. It is an extraordinarily evil thing to do at that point. Is it selfish? No, but it is. You can maybe even say like maybe it's because they found it fun. But I would definitely say the impact and the consequences that has a net negative upon the environment and the people around you, or within the within the community where your actions are done. That can be described as an evil thing. And I know you can almost argue doing these things against orcs. Would that be evil? In a sense, it is evil, but it's evil against evil. And then this is where we're going to get into the gray. Are you as a good character behaving yourself according to your alignment? And that's where I think the definitions would be needed between DM and player to have been pre-established. What is it that you're trying to achieve with your alignment to reflect your character?
Elf Beta said it regarding the aspiration, and once suggested earlier, he agrees with me when I say both reflection and aspiration, because aspiration, we would not have redemption arcs, and redemption arcs are fun.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know about a arc again. It's arc, story, trigger.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be. I've had a character where I fell as a paladin, I became a fighter, but I did not go the way of atonement. I said no. I disagree with my god's decision. I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go straight in for the evil, and I became an anti-paladin.
I say DK, I mean, I know you're feeling about story. It doesn't have to be a planned story. It can just be reaction to certain things that are happening.
I know. It's just when I hear arc, it's a trigger word in my brain that when I hear it, it goes do. It means this. I know that's bad, but it's just I've heard it so many times. It's hard for me to divorce it. You know, I just
say hello, Captain.
Hey, Captain.
I agree with Halakar here. One or two actions doesn't define a person's alignment, but it's the general direction they are heading that defines their alignment. And not every good person will always do something good, or something that is considered to be good by society. Sometimes they might do something that's considered not to be good by society. But if in general they live their life as a good person, then they would be good aligned. Yeah.
Would you argue that there can be pivotal moments within a character where they truly break character and where their alignment has to be brought into question for a potential alignment shift?
I would disagree.
Depends on the severity.
Okay.
I would say that breaking character is impossible for a human because a human isn't a character. Yeah. I'm just what I mean by that is that humans will constantly do things that most people would say that's not in character for them. It's like, well, I'm a human being and human beings aren't characters, and that's what you should embody in a D&D character. They're people.
I'm going to
and people do
general topic. I'm going to come to this general topic next. So,
all right.
If we can just hold on a little bit there, I just want to go through the comments and then this one here is interesting.
Party attacks a corruptly governed lawful good church. Is your party chaotic evil or lawful good or neutral?
Right. My answer to this one is even if the church in general is lawful good, if those governing it are corrupt, they are not
evil.
Lawful good. They are not lawful good. Therefore, the party could definitely be lawful. But here, you've got to look into how you define how each alignment would react in this. I mean, yes, a lawful good character could attack that church, but I think a lawful good character would be more likely to try and get the good people out of there and find a way of dealing with the church elders through means of the law.
Yes,
I think attacking the church is a chaotic good act. Good. It's a good act, but it's a chaotic good act because you're trying to tear down a structure.
Yeah, because you're basically operating on, like I said earlier, on your arbitrary morality, whereas a lawful good person would say, "Here's our standard of our society or our God or our rules, and we're trying to uphold a thing beyond ourselves."
But if the lawful good character is unable to use the means of the law to deal with it, then yes, they would, as a last resort, go in there.
Yeah, but they would. Yeah, but they would be chaotic. They would be. Yeah.
I might be reading the question here a little bit differently because I'm not reading it. I'm reading it as what they would be perceived at. So the lawful good church is governed by evil individuals. So you've got the top part being evil, but everything below that and the general function of the church is still within lawful good. It's just the top is rotten, and the party is attacking that. The attack on the church and how it's being perceived, whether that is chaotic evil, lawful good, or neutral. Well, I would ask how much is known. Is the top known for being corrupt? In which case, then their actions are lawful good because they are trying to bring the redemption and savior to the church. Is it a well-hidden one? And has the players decided that we're just going to do it, we don't need to tell everyone about this? Well, at that point, you're doing a chaotic evil act because you're trying to bring down something that is doing good, at least to everyone's perception. Because sure, you can argue within a cosmological thing that yes, what we did is right, but if the 100 people around you just saw you walk up and stab the Yuan-Ti
Pope.
disguised. Yeah, the Yuan-Ti disguised as the Pope. You just murdered the Pope. As far as they're concerned, there is going to be blood within that church very quickly. I don't think the action is actually neutral at any point, because it's not, unless we have a pre-set up that would balance the two out, where they are not necessarily acting in an interest. If it's more a case of, let's say, they were hired as mercenaries to go out and act, to investigate. Well, okay, now they're just doing a job. They're not invested in this.
Yeah, just for the sake, since you brought up the neutrality thing, I would say the fact that you brought up neutrality in taking action as inherently contradictory. A neutral, like a true neutral, would probably not care, because if it's not doing any gross harm to the general balance of the world, they won't give a shit.
So I'm not a fan of the true neutral alignment in the 9.
I'm not either.
Because it's very difficult to have a character in a game that doesn't really,
because it's not human morality. Humans can't be that detached. They can't be. They have emotions.
I think they can. I mean, I think the traditional druid living and work in harmony with nature, but would they work in an adventuring party in that way? It's different.
I would argue that a druid working in tandem with nature is good, because they're trying to preserve something. They're trying to preserve.
No. Nature does not give a fuck if you've.
No. Let me explain. Because they're trying to preserve life. That's what nature. Because if druids were truly neutral, they would consider the undead to be part of nature, because they exist. A perversion of existence. They're a perversion of existence, but they would argue that because it exists and it was once alive, it's still part of nature. It requires nature to exist. It therefore is natural.
No, I come from the school of thought that druids, when they take a life, they have to give a life. That is the true neutrality. You cannot kill someone that was not deemed to be done by a natural fashion without giving something back. So, ergo, I strongly encourage any druid under my DM, game, to have, apple seeds, of seeds, anything, so they can bring out life back into nature of one form or another. Because if you're going to go down the true neutrality route, you're going to have to work for that. And it is not so much. It is a mixture between a culture, it's a personal belief, it is such a deeply ingrained thing but that's why I don't encourage players to really go in for the true neutral, especially with the druids in the older editions.
I would like to, say as a joke, as DM James has popped in, I would say, yes, James, I would agree, because druids in old history were psychos. They were cannibals. Yeah, they were psychos. They committed human cannibalism and human sacrifice. Druids would be chaotic evil. Fight me on this. I'm Irish. I'm Irish. I get to say that. My culture.
Say, I mean, I don't. I like the druid as a character class for its functionality, but I think there's always been a bit of a conflict in having a druid in an organized party, because they are so defined in terms of working with nature. It's one of those quandaries. I'm conflicted on this one. I would say, to make a druid playable in a game, I would expect the player of the druid to be opposed to large urban civilizations, but be perfectly happy with small villages,
farms, and towns, things like that.
People who are using the land in a respect, in a way in which they respect rather than abuse it.
I mean, so one thing that's worth to establish, since we are on about druids and alignments, because if I'm assuming at the moment we're using 1E, 2E's alignment system of you have to be true neutral. Well, this was then later changed in 3.5 in Pathfinder, where it said you just have to be neutral good or neutral evil. It all depends on that. And then from there, those were different interpretations and schools of the druids, which you can then bring in. So again, with having that discussion with your dungeon master, what are we playing here? Is it this system, or are we importing this part or this interpretation over into our old school to allow more flexibility for a druid to be in a party, or is it going to go for the hard, true, neutral factor?
Yeah, but
okay. So we've been referring to chat for a lot longer than I had expected to at this point. I want to jump onto another topic. And this is this might be a bit of a can of worms. It's
shit, we lost him. Oh fuck.
Oh boy, you guys are stuck with me.
Okay, no, I will say that like Muktuk says here, remove the abstraction of ethics and strip it to the core concept. What powers does your character serve? I kind of agree with him on that, and that's kind of my stance. I know you disagree, and that's we're free to disagree on this. I don't know. I just prefer the alignment question to be what team do you serve, rather than it being ethics come into it, because you obviously have a personal taste when it comes to like the ethics of the group. You have your reasons for joining the group, but at the end of the day, your ethics don't really matter once you're in the group, but that's just me.
I just find that boring.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. I find the way you do it boring. I don't find it interesting, but
I do apologize for that. My internet just had a bit.
That's fine.
That's all right.
Me and Saxius and I came to we'll agree to disagree in our stances, but we'll still have a cogent argument. Yeah.
Well, the topic I was going to go into was the idea of it's what my character would do. The dickhead.
What's wrong with that?
No, that okay.
Let me finish.
The person.
Let him finish.
The people who use alignment as an excuse to be idiots, and the existence of the DM veto. Now, in my opinion, every DM has the right to veto whatever they want at a table, but a good DM knows when to use it and knows that it should be used very sparingly, and a good player will never cause a DM to use it. Have you ever vetoed a player based on alignment before? Vetoed an action based on alignment?
Yes, without hesitation.
I would say I haven't been DMing long enough, so I don't remember. Off the top of my head, no. Well, actually, I may have said that given the fact that you're lawful and believe this religion, you typically wouldn't do that. But that was more of a clarification rather than it was like they didn't understand the culture of, like, say, Lion and Dragon. So I was like, you believe this, therefore you would do this kind of thing. But never anything like where I had to bring the banhammer down and say, no, don't do that kind of thing. It was more of a suggestion.
I've had to do it once, and it actually ended up with the player being ejected from the group.
Okay.
And yeah, the player was an idiot. I'll quite happily say that. And if you ever watch this video, Ash, you're an absolute fool.
I had a player come in with a character's cleric and said he's atheist, and I told him no, I'm not having that. Not in my game. My game, we've got Pantheon. Yeah, but he found a part of the book where it says a cleric's belief, if it is true and devoted and strong, can generate spells up to level 3, and that he took and he ran with the understanding that he could be an atheist and disbelieve so strongly that he gained divine powers. And I told him that I'm not entertaining that, I'm not open for that, and quite frankly, here's a new character sheet. Thank you.
I would say they can be atheist because not atheist, but a deist. Like, not have a god, but they must be religious. Like, Buddhists don't typically have gods. They're adeists. but they are still religious and still devout. And they have people in their myths who generate miraculous powers. So I would allow if the setting had a Buddhist-style religion, but you have to be religious to be a cleric. That's my one concession.
Obviously,
you have to be religious.
That is setting dependent, but I'm very much in favour of, in terms of that, the gods are objective reality in the game world, and every cleric must have a deity, and it must be. Someone mentioned here about deities and their alignments. Yes, it must be at least similar to their deity's alignment.
I believe clerics are.
I, for example, will say a generally good benevolent deity could have lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good followers. It doesn't matter as long as they do.
They're good, yeah.
The good thing. But anyway, I think we are. I didn't particularly want to get onto clerics and whatever in terms of this veto. My own example for this was a player who I'd specifically said, I'm going to run this little campaign. It's like a little fill-in. It's important that you all work together. It's only going to be a short-term thing, and you've got to be willing to be proactive and help the innocents. And he messaged me to say, "Can I play a Celtic Evil Paladin?"
No.
I said, no, you can't. So he made a neutral good wizard. So neutral good, a good guy. And he gave he rolled some fairly average stats, a very low charisma, very low wisdom, very high intelligence, and then spent a large portion of a session trying to justify a neutral good character torturing children because he had a low wisdom and a low charisma.
Ravenloft will accept you quickly.
You'd become a Dark Lord. You'd become a Dark Lord in like 5 seconds.
No, you're a civilian there.
I think he lasted. I don't think it was. He came back for the next session. I think that was it. He'd been in our group about 4 or 5 months, and I think he was gone after that because he just argued the toss over and over and over again. No, you're not. I'm vetoing that. You will not do it. Not that I particularly want to see kids.
Good people do not. Yeah. Good people do not torture children for no good reason. Precisely. In fact, they shouldn't torture children anyway. Like, sorry, good people don't do that. Yeah, Precisely. Fuck off.
Yeah,
that's what evil people do. Evil people do that shit. Fuck off.
So, I mean, that was me using the DM veto, and I think the only other time I've done anything remotely similar is when I had a player who had a habit of being slightly jokey and occasionally a little bit trolley. Played a fighter with a low intelligence and wisdom, and then said, "My character's going to be neutral." And I'm thinking of as a little few alarm bells going there, little ding, 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 ding going there, and the character sort of started off okay, but then sort of drifted a bit towards doing a few daft things, as you would expect with a character who's not very intelligent. And I'm thinking, I want to guide this character down a generally more helpful path. Not being much of a team player at the moment. I want to be a bit more helpful. So I ended up giving them an artifact, which was an intelligent weapon that took control of the character, and the artifact was neutral good. And now it's the artifact that was overruling what the character was doing, because the artifact was saying, "No, you're not going to do that because you wield me, and I'm neutral good."
I would say nearly. I would say nearly at that point, since if the sword was at a point with an ego and an intelligence high enough to dominate the player, that player is almost completely different. You're playing a completely different person at that point.
I have had, just to give another example, it wasn't a hard veto, but I have had to hold my players close to the fire when I use charm and dominate spells on them, with the express explanation that they believed that there was a traitor amongst them, and they were surrounded by NPCs and other such thing. Now, the players are all now level 7, 8. They've very clearly defined their characters. Some of them are very murder hobo in their stance. So putting them in a situation where they have to keep true to how their character is in terms of alignment and in terms of their historical behavior is a good way for the players to also sort of realize that, if we have to be consistent in how our characters are, we really have to be careful with these things, because that's where I would have to. I stepped in and said, well, your characters behave this way. Your alignment is the one I picked on was lawful good, and we've defined how we interpret your alignment for that. You're strongly believing this, and you are strongly believing in good and evil in here, and you believe there's evil amongst you. Why are you holding back? Why am I not seeing fireballs? And why you're not rolling dice that should be murdering a lot of people here? And in that stance, it's just like, yeah, that's where that player had to sort of reap what they've been sowing for what they've been building up. But that's where I was having to keep them true to the alignment that they had built and the history that supported that alignment that they had picked.
Repercussions and consequences.
Exactly, and that's where, a lawful good character who believes there is a traitor, an evil traitor, since they were fighting the Yuan-ti, who was notorious for skinning people and wearing their skin in a magical sense to appear to be said person, or just as they are. Yuan-ti has an 80% chance of just melding in. And they know this, the players knew this, so suddenly any NPC or any person that they had a slight inkling on was suddenly a suspect with a trigger-happy wizard. And that's where I had to hold them close.
Saxius, if you could pick a comment just to reply to, give me 1 minute, please.
Sure, will do. All right. Let's quickly see here what come on. It's not working.
I'm sorry if I'm fiddling with my mic. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's all good. Wow, quickly on the spot here. I'm not exactly ready for this.
I mean, the comments are kind of devolving into a theological discussion in D&D, kind of.
Oh, sorry, the 5K. I'm just going to pick on the one that you made here. It says alignment equals personal ethics, in my opinion. Some characters don't serve higher powers willingly or directly unless it's meant that their actions serve a higher power despite that. I do like that take, that, in a way, you don't always decide that you work for something bigger than yourself. Sometimes it might just be that the actions is that, but at the very least, I like the mention that you've got the personal ethics, because a lot of what I think that alignment is going to be boiling down to is the ethics, it's the outlook, it's the personality, it's the drive of the character that that's going to be pushing things onwards.
Yeah,
so that's
my take on that is that I personally don't like the personal ethics argument, simply because that's implying that free will exists in D&D. If the free will exists in D&D, and I fundamentally don't agree. I don't think free will can exist in D&D at all.
Okay.
I don't think it can.
Apologies, that was my 50-something bladder just calling me away.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It happens.
It's all good. Right. I completely disagree with 5K5. I don't think you can have alignment as being personal ethics, because that implies that free will exists, and I don't think free will exists in D&D at all.
Well, you favour the idea of having the
not even like the 3-prong. I don't even think in the 9-prong, because the simple fact that there are planes of existence that are tied to an alignment, that the alignments have, can force themselves on you, that you can detect alignment, that the fact that these alignments force themselves on you and prescribe or even describe what you are, do you have free will? I would argue no.
I think it depends on your settings more than anything here.
Maybe.
I think if you've got certain, if you're in a setting with very few deities, for example, your DCC game where there is one deity, I think that
God, a supercomputer,
yeah, I think that's different. But I mean, in something like Greyhawk, where you've got deities that represent
like 20 or 30 of them or some shit,
loads of, but particular corners of the spectrum, then I think it's very different. And I think in that sense, the deity can force aspects on the character.
I think Bromus brought up a very good question, where he says, when people say my character would do this, is it based on ability scores, troops, or tropes, or player whims? As to me, I think that's good, because what is it that some players decide dictates, makes the character? Is it the ability score of wisdom and intelligence, or perhaps charisma? The alignment itself and how it's laid out there, or is it the player trying to find a loophole to go? But it's okay.
That's something that should be thrashed out between the group as to how they want to approach this sort of thing. If it can be generally based on the ability scores and the overall attitude of the way the character has been played consistently, then yes. But if the player simply had a bad day or is falling out with somebody, then I'll step in with my veto.
Yeah, like the whole my character would do this. There is one, like we'll say an example. Say there's we use a lawful good fighter who believes in justice, who believes that everyone deserves a fair trial, but everyone says we're just going to kill this prisoner because it's too much hassle, or we hate them, we want our revenge. And this fighter says, "I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do that." And he said, "But dude, he's against us. I know. Roll initiative, but we'll kill you. I don't care. Roll initiative. This is what my character would do. Roll initiative." And I would absolutely not veto that. I'd be like, that is him playing true to his character. Even if it means his death, he believed in this so strongly that he's willing to throw it all away throw his life away for his principles. And
as long as he has some consistency in the game.
Yes, absolutely. But we all agree that when people say that's what my character would do, it's what Matt Colville would say, the Wang Rod, the dude who just wants to be disruptive, and those people can just go to hell.
I mean, I think that's what my character should do. Should be the default. It should be the aspiration. But
yes,
as the player controls what the character does, the player should be using it constructively. And the problem is it's been used destructively.
Your character's an asshole. You've got control over him. Don't play him as an asshole. That's my simple stances.
Or at least, if he's an asshole, make sure that he's a useful asshole and doesn't disrupt the party's flow.
Yeah, you can have the annoying one who is generally working towards the party's cause, as long as it doesn't disrupt the whole game. But yeah, everyone should aspire to do what their character would do. It's just that the player creates the character. So it's make a character that would do something suitable, something sensible. And I think James is exactly right when he says this.
Yes, absolutely.
I think K5K, I agree. I'm also not religious, but I think in most game settings, an atheist character is going to be deluded.
Mm-hmm. See, the problem is, I don't think a non-believer is not necessarily an atheist, because like I said, an atheist is someone who doesn't just reject God; they reject theological claims in general.
You can be agnostic
even that I would dispute. But we're not here to discuss.
But
D&D. Let's go back to alignment.
Okay.
Which has nothing to do with religion and D&D. Totally. I'm being glib. So. I'm being glib, dude. I'm just being glib.
Let's have a look. I quite like this question here. Right.
That is very evil. That is very evil, man.
Is it?
But the reverse is chaotic good, in my opinion.
I mean,
no, because you're destabilizing. You're destabilizing economies because you're giving.
That's why it's chaotic.
I mean, I've had a player in a recent Pathfinder game who got petty with the church after they needed to resurrect an NPC that the group has just decided is a wonderful person, and he is a golden heart, and we must protect him at all costs because he actually has morals when the rest of the players don't. The player came in. The church was giving him a little bit of lip because they don't like that these characters are uncivilized and barbaric, and he decided to get back at them by paying the 10,000 gold it cost in Pathfinder in silver. And that meant that many of the banks had to pull out their emergency reserves to pay him that. And after he got more lip, he turned around and then decided, I'm now going to go for the copper just to make the church count every single penny to make sure that he's paid the right amount. He was taking all of that money out of the circulation, and it was going to be gone.
I misunderstood.
Had the church done something to deserve that?
No, not in my opinion. So they were standing at the steps and was going, well, we are not obligated to do the service for you because we hold a monopoly over who we give it to. We are upholden to our gods. And the player having done a few other things at that time, there was a little bit of challenge back and forth. I decided, you know what, I'm going to roll a dice for this and see where they go. Right? The priest who's going to be doing this says that they don't believe that they can trust the person's words that's speaking, so they're going to go and convene with the god directly and commune to see, is this person of a good worth to be brought back, in which case they had already predetermined that they were. But should that reaction roll have gone bad, the church will have turned around and gone, tough, we're closing our doors here. Your dead friend will not be brought back. And that's the end of it.
When you said exchange, I thought you meant like transmutating copper into silver and then silver into gold and gold into platinum, like using magic to transfer the money into a higher value currency. I thought that's what you meant. Because if you did that would destabilize an entire, like, not just that one region, but possibly an entire continent's worth of an economy, because you just spawned new gold that didn't exist before.
But I've seen that happen as well, but not with gold and silver. I've seen players buy mules and carts and go out into the jungles and come back with the tribe's worth of hobgoblins and all of their equipment, and then come back into town and go, here is all of these things that are worth X amount from the player's handbook. And I'd look at that and go, right, well, I'm taking 50% off. Why? Because you're saturating the market. And it's goblin value, so that's down to 25% of value, and so on and so on. But it didn't deter them, because that's money. That's just free real estate. So they would keep on doing it until they just drove the value of these items down into nothing.
Gold coin, a goblin gold coin. I don't agree with that, but that's just me.
Our friend Captain has something to say here. I think it's part of the stream to enable us just to wobble on for hours and talk nonsense is to read too much into it.
I don't agree.
Good guys. Captain. I don't know, man. Like I've seen Bill the Elf, like RPG pundits, Bill the Elf character. He has genocided people. He is not a good guy, and he's a main character in that thing.
Whether you're doing I think if you're playing through your pre-written adventures or some sort of story with a goal, I know you hate story, DK. Then generally you are leaning towards being good, being the hero. But I think if you're running a sandbox game, I think alignment can be a lot more useful in that you don't have to play the good guys.
No.
And alignment can help you build the world. It can help you shape. It can help shape reactions and be a mechanic to work with that sort of thing. But it's not the be all. It's not the be all and end all there. I like alignment as I said right at the start of the stream. I said I like alignment as a world building tool, as an inspirational tool for the characters, as something to help guide the DM, help guide the player, rather than just have that blank canvas where you stare at it and get confused. Yeah, I've played K5K. I have played a very, very bad character, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. He started off, he was neutral, a little bit uncaring, but he had a goal that he was going towards, a little bit uncaring towards other people, a bit standoffish. And I played his descent into evil, which I framed as insanity. And yes, I've played. He was a bad guy. He would have no doubt ended up being an enemy of the party, but he was working with the party in the short term because it got him more powerful. And I've played all sorts.
Question then. No, but this is a good question then. Mixed alignment.
What do you mean?
Mixed alignment, as in good and evil in the same group. What are our stances on that? Because
it could work. Because
okay,
the key is for me here is that an evil character will not necessarily be doing evil deeds all the time. An evil character might have an evil long-term goal and might be manipulating those around them to achieve that long-term goal. My neutral evil wizard, he rescued some slaves. That's a good thing to do. But the rest of the party didn't see the fact that he tried to make contact with slave traders to buy the slaves afterwards. That's just a little bit of a role-playing aside. His motives, I mean, he for rescuing the slaves were financial, and he ended up taking control of the slave traders' boat as his profits. He was still evil. He may have rescued the slaves, but his methods weren't to save them. He didn't care about them.
Yeah. I mean, go on.
No, I would say just as a side, if you are going to allow evil in a party, the only exception I would have is it's lawful evil. If you're neutral or chaotic evil, no. If there's a paladin or a cleric of good alignment in the party, or anyone of good alignment, no. It will not work. At least in the games I play or I run, it will.
We had a lawful good paladin in the party with him, and this wasn't first edition, so he didn't have the detect evil aura or anything like that.
Oh, right, okay, right.
But the player role played that paladin quite well, and he was trying to convert my character throughout. He thought he could redeem him. He thought he could bring out the best in him. And my character just referred to him as the polished ponce throughout the entire game. Shut up, you polished ponce. I don't care what you're thinking. But
go on, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to highlight what David has said here. I would class myself as an experienced player. I didn't portray that character as being self-destructive. He had a long-term goal, and yes, he was abrupt and unpleasant at times, but he wasn't outwardly evil in front of anybody.
I would disagree that evil would never be rash or self-destructive. Just the simple fact that demons exist, they are incredibly self-destructive.
We're talking about evil characters. Yeah. Evil.
Right, yeah. But even then, like sociopaths are evil, and they're incredibly self-destructive. They do incredibly self-destructive things.
I would not want a player to play a total sociopath in a party, an individual party, unless it was a specifically evil campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the fact that he said never. It's just kind of, I'm just being a pedant.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Well, I think what most of us are agreeing to, if you are going to be playing an evil character, there has to be a contribution to the party as a whole towards the party's goal. At that point, you almost have to, if you're. I mean, I've seen a player of mine that's been playing with me for many years, challenged himself by playing a chaotic evil priest of the god of storms and thunder, and it was his interpretation of it was that it was all about might makes right, and therefore it was about the fighters have asserted dominance by showing their prowess in combat against the others. Very well, they are the leaders here. At one point when there was a chance to have a physical contest to show his dominance, then right there he would then be able to sort of assert himself more within the party. But it was a pre-established way for us to understand what made his character chaotic evil without it conflicting with the group. So that was how that was.
I have some difficulty with chaotic evil in a party environment, in that I think in the short term, a chaotic evil character can work, but I think in a long term, it has to be destructive in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, this game did not go on for years and years and years. This went on for 5-6 months, and we naturally petered out at that point, and that's just how it went. But there was just a case where I looked at one player and went, I'm impressed with you. Approach me with this concept, and let's see how it pans out. With the caveat between me and him that should it go to the point of where the character couldn't feasibly be around, we will make an agreement that he will just leave at that point. But that's generally how I go about evil characters,
All right, Bromos. I think I'm going to be a bit of a bit awkward here, and I'm not a big fan of sort of much multi-classing, and I would say it would depend on how the thief has been played. In my game, I follow the rule that paladins have to be lawful good.
But
simple as that. I even in 5th edition, I don't like oath paladins and the idea that anything other than lawful good. I think there's the definition of a paladin is like a knight, a holy knight, like the aspiration of the likes of King Arthur, the Knights of Charlemagne, who were the original inspiration for the idea of the paladin. I think and there was an article in magazine a while back, going a long way back, where they had paladins of different alignments, but they weren't called paladins, and I'm quite fussy about it.
Yeah. But I will just as a curiosity. Are we talking about thieves in 1E and paladins in 1E? Because sorry to say, only humans can be paladins, and humans cannot multi-class.
Humans can dual class though, so humans can change class.
That is.
Unless the thief had somehow converted to a lawful good alignment, then I wouldn't allow it.
I wouldn't allow it anyway. Just the simple fact that by the very nature of what a thief is, like not just his class abilities, but the ethos of the class itself would clash too much with the ethos of the paladin. The paladin is upright and honorable. They don't backstab. They don't steal. They wouldn't sneak. It's just not how they are.
I would say the thief would have had to not really played much like a traditional thief. Would have had to change alignment and completely change their whole outlook on life.
Yeah.
And would say something sections.
Well, it's just I can see the combination working, but at that point you're really going for something else. It would be more akin for like a Templar or some form of shadow worker of a good aligned church, trying to do some of the work that needs to be done by surgically attacking the evil or the enemy of the organization, declaring themselves to do a quick duel of some form, and then getting themselves out of there in order to adhere to some of their orders. Now, I'd need to sit down and do more in-depth viewing of it, but it's not that I would immediately reject the idea, but that's also down to what system are we doing. If we're doing AD&D system, or the rules might not entirely support it, but if we're going into like 5e, well, that's you definitely can do that. And then you've got other ones like Pathfinder, where there probably are an entire class dedicated for that being combined.
Yeah, well,
I did see Captain was trying to connect a few minutes ago, but it didn't come through properly. So I don't know whether if you're still watching, Captain, you're more than welcome to join in.
Yes.
You sort of half appeared. It said your device was having issues connecting.
Someone asked, can you dual class a paladin ranger? No, because paladins in 1E and rangers in 1E are fighter subclasses. You can't dual class back into the same class. So I would say
I'm not
no.
sure that's specified in 1E in terms of I've actually, I have to say, I've dual classing, as in the human switching classes, has happened so rarely in my games. I when I recently did that Bard video, I had to go back and read up on all of it. It's happened so infrequently.
Okay, I will say in my games you can't. I would say in my games
that's understandable.
Much better. Because it doesn't make sense. You've trained to be this specific type of fighter. Learning any others, this ain't no 5e. This ain't no 5e. But
I do quite like this one, and I could see that working very nicely.
Oh yeah, I saw that comment earlier as well. Jared Lee later on said, "How do you resolve a pearl clutching paladin who sees an action as chaotic neutral or potentially neutral evil when the action is lawful neutral to a tribal group?"
What makes interesting the interest in the game. I mean, what's lawful neutral to one group might be seen as being chaotic to somebody else. Yeah, it's. And
are we now arguing it's a cultural thing between the two of them?
Yeah,
it's.
I would just say
whether you have that sort of cultural fluidity, or whether they have the objective forces in the game or not.
But would the barbarians be? Sorry, go on.
I would just say if the paladin prayed, beseeched his god, I would just say, look, God needs you to do this thing. Just do the thing. It's fine. As long as you don't break your standard moral code and you're staying true to it and you're only doing it for this, God will forgive you. Just say your Hail Marys, give your penance, and protect puppies from being drowned by evil Chapmen or whatever. That's fine.
But can a tribal group be considered lawful neutral?
I would say no.
So they would not be lawfully bound by the group's what's it called, traditions. So that you wouldn't see that as a part of lawful. Their traditions.
No, because law is a very it's I would view as high advanced civilizations. Barbarians are semi-nomadic or small groups with basic farming. They're a very primitive society. I don't consider primitive societies like that to be lawful. I don't. They're not advanced enough. It
might depend on quite how strictly they follow the tenets of ideals as to whether they can be lawful or not. Because law doesn't necessarily mean the entire country is thoroughly organized. A group can be rigid and structured in the way they deal with things. I mean, for example, I like the idea that all monks in AD&D are lawful because they exist in a hierarchy in an organized dojo where there is respect given to those next step up the hierarchy at all times. And a tribal group might have that same level of respect and that same level of rigid hierarchy in place. So yes, I think a tribal group could be, in extreme circumstances, could be lawful.
There is a case for it, and that's definitely what I wanted to bring out.
Yeah, the K5K just said to me that it's time for Sociology 101. I'm not dealing with a world that's bound by nature versus nurture. I'm talking about a world that is objectively created by creatures with extreme intelligence that constructed the world in a very specific way, as most standard D&D settings are, i.e., created by gods or divine power. And in a world like that, I would not consider my we'll say a real world example. I don't consider Celtics to be all that. If you compared the Celtics to the Romans, they night and day. The Romans are absolutely lawful, and the Celts are absolutely chaotic because of how the societies are set up. Their art was way more primitive. Their religions were way more primitive. Although their rules they had a lot of rules, they weren't as legalistic as the Romans were. The Romans were notorious for legalistic laws, extremely to the letter of the law. So
yeah,
no, I'm not saying that makes them bad people. That's why I say law, neutrality, and chaos doesn't necessarily mean good, neutral, and evil. It just means law, neutrality, and chaos. Just one's lawful and the other isn't. So
that's
just me.
You all right, Captain?
Hey, good day, everybody.
Hey,
Hope you're all having a wonderful day. I was enjoying the conversation. Although, gentlemen, I feel I must say, I think you guys have gone way down the rabbit hole just a little too much. I hope your feet hit the end soon before you guys go too down.
No. That's when we get out the shovels and we just keep going.
Nah.
I think you guys have got right into it, like too deep. I think based on the game is an adventure where the party is off to achieve a goal, which is normally based on every single module that's out there and all the scenarios that come out, where they're basically the heroes of the story. They're going to go champion something to cause some positive effect when it's all said and done. Whether that's as simple as clearing the moat house in Hobbit, in the village of Hamlet, or going to fight some dragon, or to clear the caves of chaos, or whatever. They're good. The party is inherently good. All this is a mechanic, especially when it starts coming down to like, how will this player behave, or how will this NPC, or how do I rate these characters? If we go into a role-playing thing, like with goblins being chaotic evil, how would they role-play? Yeah, whatever they say, I know they're going to lie. I know as the DM, I know they're going to lie. I know they'll do whatever they can. If they give their word, they're going to break it. Where you're dealing with a devil now that's lawful evil. Okay, I know if he's going to do whatever he can to screw them over, but if he gives his word, he's going to keep it. Just those type of things. It's a mechanic. That's all it is. It's getting too deep into the weeds.
Where you on at the start of the stream when I
unfortunately missed. I was in a meeting.
My own opinion is that it differs in looking from my DM's head on. There's society alignments, which are pretty much what you're talking about there. It's yes, goblins are like that. I like that. Devils are like that. Demons are like that. And there's personal alignments, which is more what the character, more to frame the character and the NPC. And yes, you can. It's there. The alignment is a mechanic there to help guide you in those moments, those little interactions here and there, but also it's there as a world building tool.
Exactly.
As well, it's a world building tool as well. But there are, of course, the reason why we've argued over alignment for 40 years is there are all these nuances and disagreements, and surely that's the whole point of the discussion.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's honestly, you know what I call that? I call that someone that wants to get out of a game. He uses that as cover. Oh, that's what the second someone uses the phrase, that's what my character would do, what they're really saying is, hey, I want to stop playing the game right now and I want out of the campaign. Right? Like when they do that bonehead thing that disrupts the entire part, that's really what they're saying. Instead of having the moral courage to say, you know what, guys, it's 5:30 in the morning. We've been at this for 12 hours. I need to go home. No, this is what my character would do. No, your character is going to do whatever the group's doing to reach the positive conclusion of this adventure, because we're all technically the good guys, right?
But what if the group doesn't follow that procedure of being the good guys and your character does? What if they say, we want to burn down the village and kill all the babies, and your character behaves good? Like, again, as
the DM, I would say that when they're getting to that level of silly, that maybe we need to call the game for the day, because people are just getting tired and they want out.
See, I'm just of the stance, Captain, that again, this is down to preferences, and that's perfectly fine. If you want, we're good guys, so on. I like to put it on the other side, where it's down to what the players are wanting to achieve, and then if they want to achieve things that are conflicting with other people's views and motivations, and that's where
I don't mean it just that way. I mean, when you look at the paladin versus the assassin, right?
Mm-hmm.
The paladin, based on the type of character it is, it's going to do a frontal attack.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to do a challenge. It's going to give the individual a chance to leave or to yield the space.
Mm-hmm.
That gives a flavor to the character. It helps you build the character, the Shining Knight. For the assassin, he'll use poison.
Yeah.
He'll do whatever he can to kill the bad guy, and he really won't care how and which he does it. Both are achieving the same means for the betterment of the story to advance by taking out the bad guy. They're just choosing two different methods to do it, and that's kind of I would call like the theatrics of the game, right? That's what I think.
Unless you're an anti-paladin, in which case you can backstab like a thief and can use poison like a thief.
But I think
they don't exist.
I think where Captain and I are looking at it from is again, correct, Captain. You do correct me if I'm wrong. He very much looks at it from the point of view that it's just part of the mechanics. That the overall goal is the fun of.
It is a mechanic. It is nothing more than a mechanic. Throw a little flavor in it, call it a day, and kick out.
Yeah. Whereas
it's a tool to help the DM, right? Like, how do I play this thing? Oh, count what's his face. Okay. Oh, it says he's this. Okay. So when I'm playing him, I'll play him this way. Okay, I got it.
I like to use it to sort of either generate a form of drama or a little bit of additional for the story, or ways to generate conflict, just to sort of make the flavors a bit different. Mainly so that the world also spins that the players can feel about. But this is back to what do you want from the games, and that's just a different preference from me running my games that way, and you having very clear ways that you want the games to be running smoothly for achieving objectives. Again, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same one. Like what David said here. If are you lawful? If in your culture you stop at the light at 3 a.m. when there's no one around, you're lawful. I think that's pretty good.
Yes,
that's
lawful.
Here in Britain, we have cameras on the lights, and if you run a red light, even at 3 a.m., you're likely to get a letter from the police in the next few weeks, advising you that you have to pay up.
Yes, we're starting to push that out here in Canada. Not to your extent, but it's starting to come.
To answer GM James's question, at least from my perspective, that he says, are paladins a fighter subclass or a cavalier subclass? I will say they're fighter, because cavaliers are a type of fighter.
It depends. He'll be talking.
I know it's a UA thing. Yeah,
If you're playing purely by Player's Handbook, they are a fighter subclass. If you are playing by Unearthed Arcana, then I think you have a choice of using the fighter subclass or the cavalier subclass. It depends on how you want to look at it.
Oh no, I'm being a pedant because I'm not answering this mechanically. I'm answering this logically, because since cavaliers are a fighter,
they're not.
Then
they're not. They're not in AD&D.
Are they?
Okay, no. Stop. What does this have to do with alignment?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. No, Zaxius, stop it! No. You're being too lawful, and you're infringing on. I'm playing my character.
Moderator. Proper moderator. Good on you, sir.
He's being lawful, and I'm playing my chaotic character, and I'm doing what I want.
I think that's James being chaotic and derailing the conversation. Okay. Wait, I'm looking for alignment related questions. Yes, I can.
Well, did you have other parts of your stream that you wanted to cover?
I do actually. Yes.
Oh, yay!
This is where I'm going to have a little bit of a rant. I think is the best way to describe it. I don't think you've ever really heard me rant on these. There is this constant thing that I see posted online at the moment, whereby having certain races always be a certain alignment keeps being described as being lazy storytelling, lazy world building, lazy this, lazy that, unimaginative. And I'm going to say people who keep saying that are talking absolute nonsense. I like the idea that certain races are bound to certain alignments because that is the way they got their deity made them. They don't have a complete degree of what's the word? They don't have the autonomy, the ability to break from that. And yes, in my game, Drizzt Duoden, whoever his name is, never existed. All drows are going to be evil because that is due to their curse. That is how they've been created. And if a player cries and screams about that, they can get lost. And if someone says that I'm being lazy in doing that, they can get lost as well. There you go.
Yeah.
Ranto.
I agree with you 100%.
Yep. I agree with you for the simple fact that I view because I view monsters as they are. They're monsters. They're archetypes.
Yes.
Like the skeleton is emblematic of death. The werewolf represents man's animal nature. The dragon is chaos. The leprechaun is the trickster. The elves are like the alien, the supernatural creature that abducts children. These things do not behave.
The dark elf.
Well, yeah, but I would say take elves in general because like how lion and dragon, but that's just me. I like that because that gives flavor to the world, because what it does is because it gives you reason to adventure, because the strange and alien stuff is out in the frontier. It's where the monsters are. It makes your characters stand out and be nuanced by contrasting them with these things, but it also states that you're fairly mundane, but these things are weird, they're alien. And that's what makes adventuring more interesting, because you're contrasting things that aren't like you. The Drow are only interesting because they don't think like us. If you make them like us, then they're boring. They're just humans with darker skin, white hair, and pointy ears, and that's boring.
If every race can be everything, then they're just repainted humans.
Yes.
Simple
with
as
fancy
that.
powers.
With fancy powers.
Yes, exactly.
So you couldn't have good aligned monsters.
You can have good, in my opinion, you can have good aligned monsters, because some monsters have got work for different purposes. Look at, for example, in first edition, the Keyrin. The Keyrin is it's like an angel
creature.
in a creature form.
The unicorn.
And it's still a monster, but it is, but it is also alien.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it a monster, because monster is a very pejorative term. I would say it's a. I know.
There's all this pejorative term nonsense.
It's
a monster because it is not a. It is not.
It's human. It's not human.
It's
okay,
not a player
that's fair.
character. It's not a potential player character. Therefore, it is a monster by definition.
All right. Okay. I'll concede to that. Okay, but yeah, like a unicorn. That thing's good aligned. Those things are as good as it gets. An angel. An angel is very good. It's absolutely good.
But by
they're
definition,
monsters.
they're monsters. Yeah. And they are. And okay, you can have stories about fallen angels, and I do allow the very, very rare exception. But in my opinion, it's not up to the players to force those exceptions.
Yes.
You have to. If players force the exceptions, and what happens? Each player, commonly you will see this arms race to be different, and suddenly nothing is really different, because if you've got a lawful good drow in the party, that party member is an ever present. So the idea that drow are evil is pushed to being not the norm, if you get what I mean. That lawful good character, because is always around, will feel like the norm.
Yeah.
And you lose the impact that way. And I would feasibly maybe have one drow in the world that's a bit different, but they would be a total outcast. They would be hunted by their people. They would not be able to live in any sense of peace, because the
surface dwellers would hate them.
Would hate them as well as their own people, and they would not be a player character. The players would not get the opportunity to change that.
I like to point out
NPC though.
That would be
a
point out
great
that David
look to get. Hey, we were trapped by the drow, and this one guy was with us in the caves. He's our guide.
He saved us.
Yeah,
and
helped us guide us out of the air. I mean, you can.
The thing is, he might still be evil, but he might be a different degree of evil, and might just be willing to work with the party for his own purpose.
I would like to at least argue. So while on my typical games, yes, this is pretty much what I do. I don't stick to the rules that closely. I have situations where I turn around and say, okay, there is now going to be a historical reason for why this group, let me take hobgoblins, why hobgoblins have found the necessity to stop their what's called alignment of lawful evil or chaotic evil and start aligning themselves with a more civilized society, such as, let's say, human. And as of such, they've had to integrate themselves because of, let's say, they are in an environment where them not being unified means total death. And therefore, they've had to integrate, overcoming or trying to take over the humans has not really been successful. And therefore, that does need to happen. But I don't see why. I don't see why I would limit myself to just having these monsters, this alignment. Therefore,
because the interesting, nuanced thing should be down to the players. The players should be the ones to introduce nuance, and when you focus the nuance on them, you get far more fulfilling stories. If you are bogging it down where everyone is gray, then it kind of strips away the importance of when players make compromising decisions, because if everything is gray, like nothing stands out. But when the players choose to stand up to evil, they are making that choice. But if everyone can do that, then it's not special. The fact that they're the ones who can do this makes them special. And I want the specialness to reside with the players.
I respectfully disagree. I like your point where you've made a world, which is a plot point and it's part of the story, where orcs are now trying to integrate with humans because things have changed. That's a story. That's a shaky piece. Who's trying to unravel it, right? I see your plot point. That's a great plot point. And as a GM, you're in the world of making a story. That's an excellent idea. Carry through with that.
My approach with that means, for example, taking hobgoblins, for example, they're an intelligent and an organized race. Though they are a lawful evil society, and I'm not going to change that. But by their very nature, they might, at least in the short term, try and work with and integrate humans. But their evil nature will come through because they will have plans in the long term.
So you believe that it's a deep-seated part of those creatures, and that will never change.
It's how they are. Yeah, they were created by a malignant force. They cannot. It's like even Tolkien didn't go that far, where even he didn't say that. I would go one step further than Tolkien would have. I'm saying no. They just, orcs cannot be any other way. Hobgoblins cannot be any other way. They might lie for a time, but eventually their evil will come through.
That time could be 5, 10, 15 years.
But it will happen, inevitably.
It will happen at some point.
It's like a sociopath or a psychopath can mask their intentions for a time, but eventually they will slip. They will make a mistake. And they just cannot help themselves. It's how they are wired. And that's kind of how I view monsters. The way they're born, they don't have the empathy chip, at least not for anything other than who they are, for their own kind. And even then, that's tenuous. So I just don't see it that way, because they're not human. And I don't want to attribute humanity to things that aren't human, because humans are the things that have these qualities, and that's what makes them interesting. But that's just me.
Yes, James, this is blasphemy. I haven't even read the 4th edition alignment system.
I would also like to point out that David Leonard said earlier, men are in the monster manual ponders. Yes, James. Yes, my friend David, because humans are the most evilest monsters of them all.
Well, they can be, yes, certainly, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The most unpredictable.
Yeah, humans, the most common worshiper of Orcus is humans. So almost every lich is a human. So, just saying.
Well, Adam says here, drow were the greatest humanoid monster. And villain, because he's autocorrect.
Yeah, autocorrect.
Ever created for tabletop role-playing games only to be weakened and normalized out of existence. Blame Drizzt for that. Now they want to make human the greatest monster. I think humans always were a great, as DK just said, always were a great monster. But I Vault of the Drow is one of the modules I have never ever managed to run because I don't want to run that with a pre-generated party, and my characters have never got to the level necessary to actually run it properly. Because I want players to go in there with characters they care about, and I think they would approach the whole thing very, very.
Does the game just peter out before it gets there, or do they just die?
They died.
It's really easy to do it.
It's a module for level 10 to 14 characters in AD&D.
That is Tomb of Horrors level, man. That's brutal.
It's a very difficult dungeon to traverse.
Gary wasn't fucking around, man.
No. Vault of the Drow. It's a Drow city, and first edition Drow were so much more lethal than later editions.
They were also far more cunning, just for the simple flavor that they had. They really nerfed the intelligence of the Drow. They really did. At least from what I haven't seen in 5e. They're not that cunning, and it sucks.
That's down to the DM. But yes, Dave, you might have a point here, David. You might have a point. Yes.
That you can only play humans based.
Yeah, I bought Volo's Guide to Monsters for 5th edition, and I have never read. I've bought it for the monster ecology bit, but I've never read the bit about playable monster races because I never intend to use it.
But again, 5e is designed very differently from the older games that most of us are sitting and playing. It's built in a different sense for that.
Yep. Like whenever I did play, go ahead, Captain.
I was just saying 5e's accomplished its mission. Its mission was to get people playing Dungeons and Dragons. It is by far the most popular of all the editions that have ever come out.
Yep.
It's got everyone's feet in the game, and it's allowed them to play it. And we know it has its failings because I just finished last night. I was playing a Goodman Games game called Classic Dungeon Crawl, which has gone back to more of the basic. And I'm in another game of basic, just because people are starting to go back to, well, this has got too safe. Now that I've learned how to quote unquote swim, I want to take the arm floaties off and go play a more traditional, more dangerous game, more up to threat level.
Old school, old school
you played
style.
it, right? Just like everything else. It's like, I learned how to ride my bike. I take the training wheels off. Let's play something else. I want to do something better. I want to go drive a car. I want to. You just want to get into it deeper. And I think that's.
Yeah.
And I think by it's being this way, where it's allowed you to play all these fanciful little things as much as. What was the word you guys used again? Grognards that you guys taught me the last time? Grognards?
Yeah, grognards.
Yeah.
Because we've done the grognard thing, we're now able to go back to what we want, what we liked, but it's done better for us. I mean, you can now wear a D&D t-shirt and no one's going to call you a nerd and chase you out of the building. You've been able to push out a YouTube channel because more and more people are playing it now. So it's done its job. I can't argue with that.
I wouldn't be playing D&D at all if it wasn't for 5e. So I'll be eternally grateful to it.
It did help get me back into it, but I did cast it aside for a long, long time because it wasn't doing what I wanted, and it's still not really doing what I want. And with each release, I mean, I know they are downgrading the input. They downgrade, sticking with alignment. They downgraded the importance of alignment to begin with, and then moving even further away from it now.
Now illithids can be good, and I'm like,
I mean, alignments are now they take great pains to say that alignments are now just merely suggestions and all that sort of stuff. And
again, it was designed for that easier access for the players to get into it. Again, to sort of introduce them in for this, get them into it, and then that's the main thing. So alignment was more or less sort of put on the backside, and they changed that around to more becoming their what was it now? Bonds. Yeah, here we go. Bonds.
noble.
ideals,
and
backgrounds,
flaws and all that sort
exactly.
of stuff. Yeah.
Because what they wanted to aim for was they wanted to take some of the ideas that Alignment was bringing in terms of the viewpoints, the world aspects, and just basically boil them down to okay. Well, here is your character's flaw. What's something that will make them
Exactly.
stumble? What's their ideal? What's a bond? What's something that either binds the character to the group, to the environment, or to the community that they're coming from? Now, again, this is just taking some of the things that Alignment helps integrate in and just turning it on its head and making it separate things that is directly there to be put pen on paper, complement your character to make them more fleshed.
No, you're absolutely right. And speaking about being absolutely right, David's comment here about how D3 is actually an infiltration module. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. You've got to work out which who you want to work with, who you're working against. You've got to ingratiate yourself in the society. It's an absolute beast of an adventure for a DM to prepare and run. But it's one I've always wanted to try and do it justice, and I think I could only do it justice if the players have got characters they really care about. It's a two-way thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
yeah, K5K is absolutely correct here. I found this.
Yeah.
It is a tendency as we get older, we do want new challenges. Yeah, that is correct. And we are drifting away from Alignment here, but Mods Races are now, they are officially playable, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, all of that is optional. It's not an option I choose to have in my game. If all the players wanted to play orcs, then I would be okay. You can all be orcs. The adventures will be quite limited because almost every scenario will be raiding the local village. You can raid a village of halflings today. You can raid a village of elves tomorrow. There you go. That's because that's what you'll be doing, and you will all be evil.
Yeah. As you have me. I mean, I think more or less like the whole discussion in regards for monsters and the Alignment, there's more or less a unified. We prefer it when Alignment is used for this because it either simplifies the games for us or it just makes for easier plot devices or what have you.
Hello, so, can you guys hear me?
No,
I think I muted myself by mistake. Oops. No, like with the whole playing as orcs thing. Like it's the whole joke of I saw like in Aaron's server, someone posted a meme of Iron Man talking to Spider-Man saying they took the template of if you need to play an exotic race to be special, you don't deserve it. Like if you need that to be unique, and if you have to, if saying that if you play this orc, you have to be evil, you find that restricting, then you should be playing an orc. I'm sorry. You don't deserve it. If you're not going to hold true to what an orc is, then you don't deserve to play as one.
And if you can't come out, I mean,
just divorce yourself.
10 different chaotic evil orcs can have 10 different personalities.
Yes. Like okay, at this point, I very strongly disagree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
I really strongly disagree with that because I'm trying to actually formulate the words here. Because to me, that is now where I'm viewing this as the point of where you're almost stepping in and going, well, you can't do that in your game. No, and I know that's not what's being meant, but at the same time, what is the requirements then for someone to be allowed to play an exotic race then?
If I say this is how orcs or elves or dwarves behave, if you play them, this is how your character is generally going to behave.
So
that's it.
Okay.
If I say that elves are very airy fairy, they're very they have a very alien mindset and stuff like that, then you're going to have to play close to that mindset, because just playing them as humans, like, what if you're just going to play an elf as a human, then you're not playing an elf, you're playing a human in drag. And I don't want you to destroy the presentation of that race just so that you can get powers or to feel special. And I hate that.
I think there's only one game where I've ever made that decision. And that was in Shadow of the Demon Lord, where they explicitly made elves to be in such a way. But if we're going with our stock standard D&D, which we have been discussing this entire time, where you can play as an elf, and frankly, already there, then you are limiting everyone to only play humans, because if you're picking up a dwarf who can live to 350 years, and where the term grudge is something so deeply ingrained into not only your society but within your alignment, that if you write down someone's name in a grudge book as a player, that person is going to have the shit kicked out of him for generations, because they don't stop just at your human first, for the first person that did that. That is a name thing. Or elves, where it's just a case of, I'm just going to wait the equivalent of 20 years and all the issues of the world would have changed. I mean,
yeah, I think that's cool. I think that's cool. I'd love to play elves or dwarves like that.
No, but
that doesn't bother me.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think you can, because you don't have that mentality. That mentality is going to be such a difficult thing to acquire. And I know it's getting more divorced away from alignment, but that's just where I don't think, like, I think we have to come back to, well, I would argue, this is where certain aspects of what the players are wanting to do should still be allowed again.
I'm between you here. I don't believe the whole point of humans is that we are painted in the game as having the widest range of personalities, the widest range of. I do think each of the other races has a tighter range of personalities they can be.
They're an archetype.
They are. But I think there's probably a little more in that range than what you're getting at, DK. I mean, I think I allow a bit of flexibility in there. But if I say, for example, all dwarves in my game are just a typical stereotype. All dwarves in my game like beer, and you come in with a character saying, "Well, I'd like my dwarf to be teetotal." I'd start questioning why you want to play a dwarf. If I've just made a simple one, if I allow all other personality traits, but your dwarf has to like beer because dwarves in this game like beer, and you turn around and say, "I want my dwarf to be teetotal," there's already a red flag being hoisted.
Again, that's someone who's trying to be difficult with the game.
Yeah.
When I get here to K5K's thing about he was always wanted to play an orc, I think the first thing you'd have to ask as a DM, I've created a story. Does an orc fit into this? Yes, no. Like I played one game where we were a band of we were basically the French Foreign Legion, but that, like, we were all criminals. We were nice. We were in a penal regiment, and this is how the adventure began. If it was something like that, well, maybe you could stick an orc in there. All right, yeah, you'd fit in with this because it's either you're getting to get executed or you got to go fight for the empire with all these other criminals. You might be able to fit that in, and then it makes sense for the story. But if it doesn't fit the story or it doesn't fit the narrative, then it's like, look, I know you really want to play an orc. It doesn't fit. Based on the way the story is set up, all you're going to be is like, you'd be one of the people to be killed by the villagers. You would never gain the villagers' trust. You're going to have to pick something else. If you want to play it, maybe in the next campaign, I'll try to write a story where we can allow you to be an orc. This is that whole thing where the game, that not so much where alignment actually plays into it. It's where we made a social contract to play a game. As a DM, I wrote a story that based on what you guys wanted. Now you've brought in this last minute thing, or you're going to play super evil and start killing everybody, which will derail the whole hook lines. And the whole, this is what my character would do crap. You've derailed it. You've used that as, again, not plot armor, but armor to derail the game, armor to throw a snag into what someone was preparing. It's basically you saying, I don't want to play, but I don't know how to tell you that I don't want to play without coming out and saying it. That's what it comes down to. I mean, if you want to sit down and negotiate with the DM, going, this is what I kind of was thinking about. Would it fit in your story? I was thinking about playing something that's not one of these races. Is there a way I can fit this in? Yes, no, maybe. That's the negotiation part at the beginning of the campaign before characters even rolled.
I don't think it was you on the stream at the time. I did mention cite an example of one of my players a few campaigns ago when I stipulated that all the characters were going to have to be sympathetic towards the innocent villagers and want to help them. And one player came straight to me and said, "I want to play a chaotic evil character." And I turned around and said, "No." So then he acted evil anyway. So he got ejected from the group.
Absolutely, you'd have to do that. That's just someone that didn't want to play the game.
Yeah.
He did not want to play with the group. That's got nothing to do with his quote unquote character. That was just someone that did not want to play and was looking for a way to say it.
He wanted to play an evil character, and I wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, no,
I wouldn't allow it.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, go for it.
I'll keep going. Oh.
No, I was just saying, like, the fact, it's like you were saying earlier, Saxius, I do, except for Gonzo games, or if I'm going for a more traditional style D&D, but most of my games, like you're saying, like only allowing humans, it's like, yeah, I only allow humans. Because at the end of the day, I don't think people can effectively role play non-humans because they don't understand how they think. Because they're not like an elf or a dwarf or anything like that.
I think they can give it a good go as long as, and this is why I think a creative, a helpful DM, as long as the player is willing to work with what is defined by the DM as to how those races act within the world. Like my dwarf beer, a very simple dwarf beer example.
Yeah.
If the defining feature of dwarves in that game is that they all drink 8 pints of beer a day, then and that differentiates them from all the other races, then they are playing the dwarf in the game according to that, and it's up to the DM to define what those traits are. I mean, that was just a simple one I pulled off the top of my head. There's the common ones like all halflings are friendly, naive, and eat a lot. If you set those three things down in the game, and the player, there's still plenty of characters you can play that are friendly, naive, and greedy in terms of food. And you're playing a halfling in terms of the game fiction. If you're sticking to those three traits, and picking other traits that are logical to go with them. But there's all manner of other things you can come up with. Here's one. The monster reaction table. If I was running BX, yes, I would use it. And the monster's alignment would have a factor in how they would react. As in, sometimes if it is a potentially friendly and helpful monster, the alignment would matter. I would make the roll, and sometimes they might just be grumpy and not want to help based on the roll. It's entirely situational.
Yeah, if I was running a module, or if I had written down in my notes that the monsters are just like bog standard hostile, or they're starving, or they're spoiling for a fight, like these, like say we'll use like hobgoblins. These particular hobgoblins are spoiling for a fight, they won't open to negotiations. Yeah. But if say you snuck in on a different group of hobgoblins who are sleeping or resting or eating, and you catch them off guard, they might be more, they might be a little more, willing to compromise and willing to speak to you. But they still are not on your side. They're still monsters,
I don't use those reaction rules at all. Like, I pretty much just look at what the situations are. I react from there, and if I have to do any form of checks, it's a morale check to see if they break or not.
I like using the reaction rolls to keep me on my toes and force me to think out of the box sometimes.
Yeah. I don't always use them. Yeah, exactly. I usually I do, but sometimes I just say, they're amicable, or like I said, they're hostile, or they're indifferent. So they're just like, yeah, we don't want to fight you. We don't care if you kill these guys. Go ahead, we'll let you go. We don't care. You haven't killed any of us. You haven't stolen from us, and we want them dead. Off you go. We're not helping you, but go ahead.
Oh, I like this. I think 5 Cases put in a really good comment about it. If you look down at the bottom, he's talking about play example, monsters reaction, orcs ambush. There, yeah, read this.
Caught on the back foot, injured and resting. Characters are about to be slain. Party entreaties for parley succeeds. Reaction check. They talk for now. Yeah. That's really cool. Like, it would catch the orcs off guard. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in Pirates of the Caribbean is Jack Sparrow literally calls for parley on everyone who wanted to kill him, and they listened to him.
So he was acting on their lawful side because they were forced to abide by the rules.
Well, no, because Barbossa also said the code is what you would call guidelines and actual rules. So they're arbitrarily following them.
It was a running joke throughout the movie, which is great. And for this, that would make it great.
It's great, yeah.
But in this example, as a DM, that's plot armor, right? Hey, the characters use their heads trying to get out of a death thing. I've now avoided the TPK because no one wants a TPK because that just ruins, that ends the game for everybody. So this is a wonderful option. Yeah, you can do that. I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
I wouldn't say use it to save the players. If they made a mistake and pissed off the orcs to that degree, they just kill them. But I can see the intent of what you're going for. This gives the DM a chance to make the game more interesting, which I am absolutely in favor of.
Well, there are enough modules out there, and I know that Yield Geek, we both have the same adventure that we really like, where there's a party of evil characters, but if you stop and talk to them, you'll find out, even though they're evil, there's something else that's bothering them, and if you help them, even though they're evil characters, like evil monsters, if you help them, they'll agree that, hey, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You help us, we'll leave you guys alone. But that's all about the role play and how we should deal with it. If you don't deal with them that way and do the parlay thing first, it's just gonna be a hack and slash and very quickly become a hack and slash and a murder hobo game as opposed to a very detailed, hey, we got to work out a treaty with these guys, we got to work out some kind of alliance, and the only reason why we're having this talk is because we hate each other, but if we don't work together, these guys are going to wipe both of us out. Enemy enemies are friends. That wonderful D&D scenario, wonderful role play. It still follows the core thing of alignments, which we've been originally talking about, where alignment. And for the DM, you can go, okay, once we're gone through these series of modules, here's my plot hook. Does the alliance hold? Does it not hold? And because we bought them time to regroup, what's that going to do? Or is there somebody else working against it? Something even bigger or badder? You can extend that into something else. So, again, it's all common sense plot stories and threads, and it's a mechanic to help give you some flavor. And for the DM who rolled up, oh my God, it's giants on the encounter table. How does a giant act? Okay, they're this. Okay, good. I know quickly that this is how it's going to be. That's really what it's for. If you think about it in its raw mechanics thing, it was like, how do I role play this? How does this thing supposed to react? Okay, I rolled up. Oh, they're going up against pixies. If they're nice to them, the pixies will probably be nice back and let them through, and won't be a fight.
I'm sure that was an aspect of what alignment was for, but there's the whole with the Appendix N and stuff like the Elric of Malnabané and the medieval fantasy in general of good versus evil and the 3 Hearts and 3 Lions that really informed how it worked. That would also explain the intent behind it. But I can see it. Yeah, I can understand the whole, if they meet giants, they generally behave like this as a shorthand to help the DM. Yeah, I will completely concede to that.
Sorry, go on, John.
No, I'm just saying that I completely concede to that. That's all.
I'm just going to reply to this one from Adam, and I'm going to be, this is me being my old pedant here. I won't buy the complete book of humanoids for my collection because I don't like the idea of them being playable races, and to be honest, I rarely open my copy of 5th edition Volos because of that section. I have an aversion to that.
I thought that he means the complete book of humanoids from 2nd edition.
It does there, yes, it does.
Okay.
Huh.
Gentlemen, I have to leave you. Thank you so very much for allowing me to
thank
join
you, man.
you
It was
again.
No
always
problem.
And again,
interesting, man.
Yo Geek, please keep doing what you're doing. It's absolutely fantastic. I
Yes.
love it. Take care.
Cheers,
Gentlemen,
thank you.
have a
Thank you.
wonderful evening.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you, man. It was great to have you. You were really good.
Bye. Right. I absolutely would use the complete book of humanoids for that, because I will take the enemy's leaders and I'll take them through that ringer to make them almost like playable characters.
I don't feel like I need a book to help me beef them up, though. I make my own changes to them anyway. I don't feel a book needs to give me permission to beef up humanoids.
It's not permission to that. That's just to help. What's it called?
Newbies or neophytes.
I suppose.
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say that. Just look at what it gives. Look at what the math that they've provided to you. Use that as an example. Otherwise, sure, you could just say, here's a hobgoblin, slap some fighter levels on him, bam, done. Or here's a hobgoblin, give him some levels in magic user, bam, done. Sure, if you want to do it that way, but I'd like to get a little bit more into the weeds. But that's me. I like getting in there, see what I can dig out, see what I can do. Why is it going to be different this way? And what can I do for this to build this character that's going to, or this enemy character that's going to be more unique, where conversation mid-fight is actually going to have some context and some meat to them rather than just I will destroy you. It's like no.
Here's an interesting one. My answer to this one goes on along with my answer to about changing alignments early on. If it's a one-off and you get involved in one stupid altercation because you're intoxicated, it's not it's not an ongoing pattern of behavior, it wouldn't affect alignment. But if it became a pattern of behavior and you knew that when you were getting drunk, you were picking fights with innocent people, then yes, there might be repercussions.
I would say that drinking booze brings out your true alignment.
That's like
I'm just saying it as a joke, but because alcohol releases inhibitions, but it's more a joke, to be honest. It's only a joke.
But that's player versus character.
Oh, I know. I'm just memeing. I'm just making a joke. But I would agree with Geek in the sense that if you kept doing it and you behaving this way while you're drunk kept you doing this, then I would say, yeah, you'd probably have to suffer an alignment change.
No, I wouldn't even go that far. I'd just talk to the player and say, all right, your alcohol intake is now affecting the game. You either stop or you leave. I wouldn't even bring it into the game in that sense. At that point, now it's real life.
I think he means characters.
He means in the game. He means in the game.
No, in the game.
Yeah, when your PC is drinking to excess. That's what I'm talking about. Player option: good elves are hostile to human encroachments on their force, cutting them down. Good does not mean amicable.
Yeah,
I mean, you said are hostile. That means that they're attacking all humans on sight.
If those humans are knowingly cutting down the elves' home environment, it's
then.
Yeah.
But if it's saying they're just hostile to humans encroaching, my bad. I misread the structure of the sentence. And
to the elves, the humans would not be good. They would be an enemy.
Well, now we're bringing the different perspectives of morality and good in here.
Yes. All right, where are we now? Has anyone got any more points they want to bring up? Because I had one more, one with problem players and problem alignments, but I think we pretty much.
I mean,
I'm just going to read out the notes I've got here. Playing lawful good as lawful stupid, playing neutral as apathetic, chaotic neutral attracting idiots and trolls, and evil players playing evil characters refusing to accept consequences. Those were the notes I made here. But I think
I mean, I would say, because someone else brought it up earlier. I firmly believe that people who play chaotic neutral are either playing it as an annoyance because LOL's so random, or they are doing it out of malice. So because they're not playing it correctly. So the player playing it is IRL chaotic evil. Because they're I'm saying IRL they're chaotic evil because they're doing something disruptive that's harming other people's fun, and they're doing it maliciously.
If a player played chaotic neutral to do that, I would take the sheet off them. I'd cross it out. I'd cross out their alignment. I'd write chaotic evil in there, hand it them back, and then they'd face the repercussions.
What are you defining as chaotic neutral? Like we need to start there. Because chaotic neutral has had several rewritings.
It has, yes. In my game, the chaotic neutral is the individual. They believe in freedom. Freedom does not mean random, do whatever I want. Freedom can a chaotic neutral would be just as likely to rescue a group of slaves as a lawful good, but for a different reason. Because the idea of slavery is against what a chaotic neutral believes in.
Okay, so can I read out this passage here for chaotic neutral?
Is this the one from the first edition book?
No.
That I disagree with.
Well, I'm not. That's not the one I'm going to read out.
Which one? Yes.
A chaotic neutral character follows his whims. He's an individualist first and last. He values his own liberty, but doesn't strive to protect others' freedom. Is that in the alignment of what you more or less see it as?
I would go to a bit further to say that the freedom of others matters to a chaotic neutral as well.
Okay.
I disagree with that. Chaotic neutrals, they're not evil, so they do have some value on life and limb and property. They're not going to go around destroying everything.
Okay.
DK? I will. For me, how do I define chaotic? I watched a video on the Spoonie experiment, and he talked about chaotic neutrals, and the way he described chaotic neutrals as, and if I could just peg it down to one line, is if you're still adventuring, if you're still playing with a chaotic neutral character after one adventure, you are not playing to your alignment.
I'd say he's
because. Because my reason for believing that is because chaotic neutral to me is bordering on anarchy and insanity. They are completely arbitrary, completely flights of fancy. They operate on pure instinct. They do things not even for money, but just because it sounded like a good idea at the time.
See, I don't. Any intelligent individuals exist in would exist and live to the age of 20 in the world who acted like that. So
I'm not saying
I would not. I think he's wrong in that idea. I don't agree with your interpretation there either.
And that's fine, but like that what I'm talking about as well is like, these people are either very lucky or they're dead. That's why they're so rare. You know, that most people don't behave like this because the ones that do are on the fringes of society and nobody meets them, or they died because they did something really stupid. You know, it's like they're like the biggest members of the Darwin Awards. They did something stupid and paid for it.
A perfect chaotic neutral is a bounty hunter, in my opinion.
I would say that would be more actually. That's more true neutral or neutral evil to me, but that's just me.
I'm gonna have to say that's gotta be you. That would be your interpretation of that. But yeah, I go with the stance that
go for it.
Chaotic neutral characters, they want no restrictions upon themselves. they want their ability to go where they want, say what they want. I mean, I'm not saying that they would expect no consequences. No person with an intelligence higher than 6, lower than 6, would be that daft. But they are looking for their own freedom first and foremost. That is the main thing for a chaotic neutral character. That's their outlook. That they want their freedom, and then that's what is the motivator for them. The description I've heard from you, DK, is very stemming from the AD&D, where it is based off the whims of what the character wants to do in that moment and time. And at that point,
language is a little bit out on that one. I'm going to say on Straw Piglet here, Han Solo was a bounty hunter. Would anyone ever describe?
No, he was a smuggler. He was a smuggler. Boba Fett was the bounty hunter, as was
I thought Han Solo. Okay, I'm showing my Star Wars and lack of knowledge here.
It's fine. Yeah, it's all good, man. Yeah. He had bounty hunters after him, is probably what you're thinking. Bounty hunters were hunting him, but he himself was not a bounty hunter.
I would say bounty hunters are necessarily evil.
No, they're not. That's very
What's the setting? What is the setting? Who is putting the bounty out? How is she acquiring this? I would argue that the bounty hunter, it's the means and the methods that he employs that would define his morality more than anything.
I think they mean mercenaries when they say because a lot of bounty hunters are mercenaries. I think they're conflating the two. Mercenary to me I would say would be like neutral evil, because they're. I don't see people.
Bounty hunters are individuals who.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say most of them are chaotic. It depends how they treat their quarry. How would the Wood Elves in The Hobbit fall as far as alignment goes?
Are we talking BX alignment or 1A, 1E alignment?
Hobbits. The
Hobbits. First, AD&D alignment. I would say they would lean towards chaotic good.
Chaotic good, yeah.
That is the traditional elven alignment that it's based on.
Tolkien elves are, from what I've seen of them, are fairly chaotic. They're chaotic or neutral good. I would say they're either or, but leaning towards chaotic good.
I have mainly viewed them as being neutral good because, at least within the Third Age, their activity within Middle-earth was very limited. They didn't engage anymore. In the previous ages, they were very chaotic, very out there to get involved. They were very much like, evil is being done, we must get invested now. Whereas now they had reclined, they had lowered, they were now looking out for themselves. Just a quick thing on the mercenary bounty hunter thing, at least in Danish. Bounty hunter literally means hunter of value. Mercenary translates into soldier for hire. So that's why I don't see them as being interchangeable.
Yeah, but here's the problem: that the way a lot of people use the word mercenary, they're soldiers that don't have loyalty because they're bought with coin, and that's often there's a disdain to them. And a lot of mercenaries, like as soon as things go south, 9 times out of 10 they flee because they're not loyal.
No, well, we can discuss that off stream, as that's not. This is not related to alignment.
What happens to a paladin if he puts on a helm of opposite alignment? He's no longer a paladin. I'm sorry.
By the rules, yes, that is how the older editions work. In the newer editions, in 5th edition, you are still a paladin.
Yeah.
Which is lame to me anyway.
Yeah, but then again, the alignment in 5th edition has been lowered for its impact, meaning helms of opposites hasn't really got an effect.
Elfbait hits a nail on the head. Yes, you can still form attachments and loyalties. How firm you are and how trustworthy you are in those attachments and loyalties. How loyal you remain is another matter, but you can still form them. Yes, you can.
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, sure. I mean, like I think it was Was it Ted Bundy? Yeah, I think Ted Bundy was said to love his mother. So I mean, and that dude was as evil as it gets, and hey, he loved his mom. So, yeah.
People talking about the mercenary versus soldier sort of thing.
Nah.
I would agree with this one.
Yeah, he was very much looking out for himself.
Yeah, it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. He was very independent.
My knowledge of LOT is just I was watching some lore videos and the films. So, I'm not too knowledgeable on LOTR, so I've been meaning to read it. So,
but one thing I am going to say now is we are at 10 to midnight where I am, so I am going to be to bring the stream to a close in about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through my thank yous. I want to thank Captain for popping in, and Saxius and DK for being with me the whole time. Woo! Is there something both of you would like, either of you would like to say? As I'll give you a closing spiel if you wish.
I'll let you go first, Saxius.
Play the game the way that you have fun. At the end of the day, I don't think the opinions of others should influence your fun at your game table. That's my closing thing. Like, at the end of the day, you're here to have fun. Whatever.
Well, actually, he's wrong, and you should do the way I'm just kidding. No, at the end of the day, whatever you use, 3-pronged, 9-pronged, or purple, pink, polka dot pronged, whatever you want, I don't care. It's a tool, right?
Yes.
In the game I'm designing, alignment is referenced in my apocalypse game, but because 1, it's set in the real world, and 2, it's an apocalypse, it's not going to be objective in its morality. It doesn't even matter. It's just there as a throwaway and for general behavior. It's all setting dependent, and it's all DM dependent. It's just a tool. So use it or lose it. It doesn't matter.
I think as a closing thing, what Gregory has said here, you should not be constrained by your character's alignment, but I do think you should be very respectful of how the DM frames alignment within the world. And I think it's something that should be discussed between everybody. I think it should be the DM should lay out the expectations in terms of how alignments affect the world, and the players should seek to work with them and not abuse them.
Yes. Alignment doesn't matter until the DM says otherwise. There you go.
Yeah. But it's there as a tool to be used to help you.
Yeah.
And when it causes problems, it's because people are pushing it too far.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've got work tomorrow. It's 7 minutes to midnight, and we've been yapping for nearly 3 hours again. Thank you all. Everyone has been in chat. It's been brilliant. All the comments we've had, very constructive. Thanks, Saxius. Thanks, DK. Thanks, Captain, for popping in. It's been good fun again. And thank you all for supporting the channel. I didn't expect to have to do so it's bad to say have to do a stream this week. I promised I'd do a stream at 550. I didn't think I'd get 550 this week until a couple of days ago, when suddenly I came to 23 in one day, which was unheard of. So someone's shared me out somewhere. So whoever did that, cheers. I do appreciate it. Thank you all for popping in, and I'm going to end the broadcast in 3, 2, 1.
Bye.